Chapter 157. Over the next few days, a large number of outsiders poured into Shangyang City every day, filling the streets, inns, and taverns. The city, which had been in decline for a long time, became lively again. Most of these people came for Boiwanhu's tomb, while a small number came purely to watch the fun. Recently, news about Boiwanhu's tomb had spread all over the place, and it had become a hot topic among the residents. Today, a group of 10 people walked into the Spirit Cultivator commercial street. They were all wearing light blue robes embroidered with green clouds. "Look, who are those people?" "I don't know, but I can tell they're disciples of a Spirit Cultivator sect. They're not people we can mess with. Go, stay away." Aren't they from Heavenly Cloud Tower?" "They're from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Look at the leader. He's one of the deacon elders of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Eugeniu. He's a spirit pulse expert of the 4 realms of Sky Man." The surrounding people were slightly shocked. After all, 99% of the people in this group would never be able to enter the spirit pulse realm in their lives. Their eyes were filled with envy and awe. In the main hall of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong sat on a chair while Shui Wenli paced slowly. From time to time, someone would quietly come in, hand over an envelope, and leave. Go Huarong asked, "Have you found out about that person?" Shui Wenli was stunned after reading the contents of the letter. His face darkened, and he paused for a moment before saying, "Not yet, but my subordinates reported that people from Heavenly Cloud Tower just entered the city." Heavenly Cloud Tower. Go Huarong was shocked and couldn't sit still. "Yes, many people saw them. The leader is the Deacon Elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Eugeniu, a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator." Spirit Pulse Realm. These 3 words exploded in Go Huarong's mind. They didn't even have a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator in Shangyang City. Now, one had suddenly appeared, and he was the Deacon Elder of a third-rate Spirit Cultivator sect. Needless to say, Eugeniu must be here for Boiwanhu's tomb. Go Huarong asked in a deep voice, "Just him?" "There are 9 other elite disciples of Heavenly Cloud Tower. It's worth mentioning that Ji Gu, one of the 4 spiritual guards who was in charge of protecting Bao Pingyi, is also among them." 9. Hearing this, Go Huarong's face turned even uglier. He had already sent out all his gang members to search for clues in the vicinity of Shangyang City according to the map. He had also made some progress, so it could be said that he had a slight advantage. However, so what if he had the upper hand? Not to mention the others, just the 10 people from Heavenly Cloud Tower alone would be enough to turn his Chinko Hall upside down. Although he had a few spirit transformation realm leaders under him, how could those people who came from the wilderness be compared to the sect disciples who had been raised since childhood? What's more, Eugeniu was here. Who could be his opponent? At this time, Shui Wenli said, "Hall Master, should we contact Eugeniu?" "Sigh, it's too late. Since we were able to get the news, the City Lord's mansion must have known long ago. Although Chu Axian Ran is dead, City Guard Commander Zhong Lin is still alive. He is now in charge of all affairs in Shangyang City and will definitely contact Eugeniu as soon as possible." Go Huarong sighed slightly. But it was Chu Axian Ran who hired assassins to kill Bao Pingyi and the 4 spiritual guards. It's impossible for Heavenly Cloud Tower to cooperate with them. If you say so, then so be it. Do you have any evidence? Isn't that Ji Gu one of the 4 spiritual guards? He is the evidence. You underestimate Chu Axian Ran too much. Ji Gu must have secretly relied on the City Lord's mansion to survive until now. With him as the middleman, they will work together. What should we do? Shui Wenli was also a little anxious. Go Huarong had experienced great storms and waves, so he quickly calmed down and said, "Don't worry, since the tomb of Buiyuan Ho can attract Heavenly Cloud Tower, it can naturally attract other spirit cultivator sections. Send more brothers to watch the various city gates at all times. Once you find a spirit cultivator sect entering the city, you must inform me as soon as possible. We also need to find strong reinforcements. Hall Master is wise. By the way, what should we do with that old man surnamed Lou? He's just an idiot. He actually handed over the map so easily. I originally planned to kill him directly. Let's keep him first. When we find the tomb of Buiyuan Ho, we'll bring him in. He's at least a spirit transformation realm cultivator. When we get the tomb, Go Huarong's eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke. Shui Wenli immediately complimented, Hall Master is far-sighted. This subordinate admires you. However, the two of them would never have dreamed that Ling Shiqi was actually right below where they were talking. Furthermore, he had listened to every single word of their conversation without missing a single word. Before Ling Shiqi came to Chinko Hall, he had stored a lot of dry food and water in his mustard seed bag. After reaching an agreement with Go Huarong, he pretended to leave, but in fact, he sneaked back underground. He had two purposes. First, he could know all the information at any time. Second, he wanted to see what kind of face Go Huarong had. Today, he saw that he was not a good person. The reason Ling Shiqi had directly given the map to Chinko Hall was because it was useless to him. Chinko Hall had a lot of people. With two maps, it wouldn't take long for them to find the tomb of Buiyuan Ho. He also hoped that the tomb would appear soon. It would be best if it appeared within half a month. That way, he could go back and take over the mission to assassinate Bao Pingyi. However, the appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion also surprised him. Buiyuan Ho was indeed a very great person in the folklore, but in the end, he was just a marquis with no real power and lived in a small city. Such a person was really nothing to a spirit cultivation sect. For example, if the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion's master and head elder joined the Thunderfire dynasty, they could easily get the title of marquis. The appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion worried Ling Shiqi the most. He was afraid that his identity would be exposed. When he assassinated Bao Pingyi, he used the identity of the old man surnamed Liu. His appearance was also the same. This definitely could not escape Ji Gu's eyes. Once he dared to show up with this identity, Ji Gu would definitely recognize him. At that time, he would not have the confidence to resist the encirclement of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert and 9 Spirit Transformation Realm cultivators. It seems that it is necessary to deal with this hidden danger, Ji Gu. Ling Shiqi coldly muttered to himself, then left Chinko Hall. When night fell, Ling Shiqi touched the vicinity of the city lord's mansion. Then, the veins at the corner of his eyes bulged and he opened his eyes. In his vision, the world suddenly turned black and white. He carefully looked at everyone in the city lord's mansion, as well as their spirit aura. Not long after, he locked onto a familiar aura. It was one of the 4 spirit guards, Ji Gu. Chapter 158. However, Ling Shiqi didn't act rashly because there were more than a dozen spirit transformation realm cultivators around Ji Gu, as well as one who was more than 10 times stronger than him. Ling Shiqi swallowed his saliva and thought, that's Yu Jinyu, a true spirit pulse realm expert. Not long after, those people dispersed, and Yoshitsugu also entered a room alone. Ling Shiqi knew that his chance had come. Ji Gu had been living in an abyss of suffering during this period of time. At first, he failed to protect Bao Pingyi and failed the mission. At worst, he would just return to the sect to be punished. However, he didn't think that Chu Xinran would dare to kill them. When he fell into the hands of the city guards, he thought he was dead for sure, but in the end, he became a chess piece in Chu Xinran's hands. When he returned to the sect, he was still severely punished according to Chu Xinran's instructions, but this was nothing. Later, when he learned of Chu Xinran's death, he realized what despair was and what the pain of waiting for death was. If Chu Shinran died, who would give him the antidote? Recently, he would feel intense pain in his body every once in a while. Each time, it would get worse and worse. If it happened a few more times, he was afraid he would die from the pain. Just 2 days ago, Heavenly Cloud Pavilion learned about Marquis Buyuan's tomb and immediately sent people to Shangyang City. Because Ji Gu had stayed in Shangyang City before, he was familiar with the place, so he was brought along to make up for his mistake. Ji Gu naturally wanted to come to Shangyang City. Only here would he have a chance to find the antidote. Although the chances were slim, it was better than waiting for death. At this moment, he walked into the room arranged for him by the City Lord Mansion. He felt physically and mentally exhausted. The pressure of running for a long time and slowly approaching death almost made him collapse. Ji Gu whispered, "Sigh, I don't know if I can find the antidote." Perhaps it was because he had been wandering on the edge of death, but at this moment, Ji Gu suddenly felt a strong killing intent lock onto him. He immediately turned around and was about to shout, but he didn't expect a dagger to be pressed against his throat. Yoshitsugu was horrified. When did this person appear? However, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He could only look at the person behind him from the corner of his eyes. He felt that the person looked familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. The person who made the move was naturally Ling Shichi. Originally, Ling Shichi wanted to kill Yoshitsugu with his full power, but after hearing Yoshitsugu's words, he changed his mind. Yoshia was looking for an antidote. What antidote was he looking for? Ling Shichi recalled that Mao Kai had mentioned to him that Chu Shinran deliberately let one person go in order to frame him for killing Bao Pingyi and the 4 spiritual guards. With Chu Axian Rant's methods, how could he let Yoshiko go so easily? Ling Shichi quickly guessed that Chu Shinran most likely used poison to control Yoshia. Chu Shinran's belongings were all with the Ling Shichi. He rummaged through the mustard seed bag and found a bottle of poison called ant-devouring poison pill. After swallowing this poison, the whole body would be in severe pain every once in a while, as if countless ants were gnawing on it. And every time it happened, it would be more painful than the last. If the antidote wasn't taken within a month, the person would eventually die from the endless pain. Coincidentally, he also had the antidote. So Ling Shichi changed his mind about assassinating Yoshia. He whispered, "Yoshia, right? We're old acquaintances." As soon as Ling Shichi spoke, Yoshia immediately remembered who this person was. He was the assassin who killed Bao Pingyi. Although that person only said one sentence to Chu Shinran, Yoshia still remembered it clearly. However, he did not expect that one day, he would also become the target of assassination. Thinking of this, he smiled dejectedly and said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. In any case, I don't have many days left to live. Just give me a quick death." Ling Shichi took out a pill and said with a sigh, "Well, since you want to die, then this antidote will be wasted." What a pity. When Yoshia saw the pill, he seemed to have guessed what it was. His eyes suddenly lit up, and endless hope of survival rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "What antidote is this?" Seeing this, Ling Shichi smiled and said, "Naturally, it's the antidote to the ant-devouring poison pill in your body." Who? Yoshia's breathing instantly became heavier. He trembled and said, "Really? Hey, I won't lie to you. If you don't believe me, you can take one now," Ling Shichi said as he handed the pill to Yoshia's mouth. Yoshia hesitated for a moment but immediately opened his mouth and swallowed it. Then he closed his eyes. After a few breaths, he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were full of joy. He could clearly feel that the poison in his body was rapidly fading. The antidote was real. However, Yoshia knew very well that the other party would not give him the antidote for free, so he said, "What do you want? Just tell me." Ling Shichi took back his dagger and sat down on a chair next to him. He said, "No wonder Chu Shinran chose you. You're really a smart man. The ant-devouring poison pill is not so easy to detoxify. You must take 3 antidotes in a row within a month to completely detoxify the poison. The remaining 2 antidotes are in my hands." Yoshiya's eyes flashed when he heard this. He had understood what Ling Shichi meant. The other party wanted to use the poison to control him, just like Chu Shinran did. At this point, Yoshiya couldn't help but feel a little helpless, but in order to survive, he had to answer, "Yoshiya understands. I'll do my best to fulfill your orders." Ling Shichi knew that it was done. He said in a serious voice, "You only need to do 3 things. First, don't expose my identity. Second, tell me the information about your heavenly cloud tower. Third, do one thing for me after entering Buyuan Hoji's mausoleum. As for what it is, we'll talk about it later. As long as you agree to these 3 conditions, I can give you another antidote now. I'm much more sincere than Chu Shinran." Yoshiya began to twitch when he heard this. He could fulfill the first condition of Ling Shichi, but the second condition was tantamount to leaking the intelligence of the sect. If he was caught, his cultivation would be abolished and he would be expelled from the sect, or he would be executed directly. And the third condition, if the other party asked him to attack his fellow sect members, what should he do? Ling Shichi seemed to see what Yoshiya was worried about, so he said, "Don't worry, the information I want is only the basic information about your heavenly cloud tower. I can get it by asking around. It's just that my legs are not good enough, so I don't want to make a few more trips. As for the last condition, I will never let you do anything that will make the heavens angry." Ling Shichi's words finally dispelled Yoshiya's worries. He nodded and said, "I promise you." Chapter 159. Ling Shichi quietly left the city lord's mansion without anyone noticing. Not only did he successfully solve the hidden danger of his identity being exposed, but he also took control of a spy in the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. It could be said that this trip was not in vain. I really didn't expect that Chu Shinran's method would end up as a chess piece in my hands. It's very interesting. After solving the hidden danger here, Ling Shichi continued to return to the underground of the Chinko Hall and waited for news. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, another 4 days had passed. In these 4 days, there were not as many people entering Shangyang City as before, but it caused waves of excitement because spirit cultivator sects kept appearing one after another. The third-rate sects, Hao-Yi sect and Luoyu Manor, both came. Moreover, the leaders were all Spirit Pulse Realm experts, which caused a wave of commotion. In addition, there were a few demonic cultivators of unknown origins that appeared in Shangyang City. Demonic cultivators were a special kind of spirit cultivator. The cultivation methods they cultivated and the spirit techniques they used were mostly cruel and bloody. Moreover, most demonic cultivators had bad tempers, so they were not liked by many. On this day, Go Huarong was anxiously waiting for something in his room. He rarely showed such an anxious expression, so it was obvious that he was waiting for something or someone important. Not long after, Shui Wenli ran in with a head full of sweat, but his face was full of joy. "Hall Master, I found it, I found it. The entrance to Marquis Buyuan's mausoleum is in the flat roof." Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Go Huarong laughed loudly and said, "Good, good, good. This time, you've done a great job. In the future, when I'm old, I can rest assured that the Chinko Hall will be in your hands." Shui Wenli was immediately shocked and said, "I don't dare to take credit. Besides, Hall Master will break through to the Spirit Pulse realm in the future and prolong your life. Hall Master, you're still middle-aged." Ha ha ha, okay, but don't make this matter public. Let the brothers of the Spirit Pulse realm and above leave the city in batches. Before anyone else finds out, we'll take action first. Go Huarong ordered. Yes, but when do we inform Luo Yu Manor and the old man surnamed Lu? Go Huarong thought for a moment and said, there's no rush. Let's arrange for our people to go out and make preparations. We'll inform them the day after tomorrow. At this moment, a voice came from outside. Hall Master, that Lu guy is here again. He's asking to see you. What? Go Huarong and Shui Wenli looked at each other in confusion. They had just discovered the location of the mausoleum, and that person had come knocking on their door. This was too much of a coincidence. However, they didn't suspect anything. After all, only the two of them knew about this in the city. Go Huarong replied, tell him to wait for me in the side hall. At this moment, Ling Shiqi was sitting in the side hall and slowly drinking tea. The best news for him in the past few days was that he had broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. He was already at the peak of the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm when he was in the Dark Erosion Spring. Later, he focused on cultivating the 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter art, and his spirit force became even more refined. Originally, he could have broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm long ago. Unfortunately, he had been rushing to the Donglin County branch and carrying out missions for more than half a month. When he was preparing to return to the branch to cultivate in seclusion to break through, he inexplicably suffered an unexpected disaster, causing him to be seriously injured. In the past few days, his injuries had finally healed, and his cultivation had naturally broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. It just so happened that he was about to enter Boiwanhu's tomb. It was naturally a good thing that his cultivation had broken through, and he was more confident. At this moment, he had nothing to do, so he opened the system and looked at his information. Name, Ling Shiqi, Lu Xingji, cultivation, 6th level of the spirit transformation realm cultivation method, rank 3 cultivation method, Moonlight Cloud manual rank 3 cultivation method, Beast Origin demonic technique, incomplete, rank 4 cultivation method, 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter art, incomplete, bloodline. Spirit skill, rank 2 spirit skill, Forest Front Finger, complete, rank 2 spirit skill, Poison Fire Palm, complete, rank 3 spirit skill, Channel Charging Sword Chi, complete, rank 3 spirit skill, Floating Spirit Steps, complete, rank 3 spirit skill, Devouring Light Flying Dagger, complete, system coins, 41. When Ling Shiqi saw the last Devouring Light Flying Dagger, complete, he laughed in his heart. This spirit skill was actually one of the rewards for giving the map to Go Huarong. At that time, he asked for a rank 3 spirit skill, but he did not deliberately specify what type. Thus, Go Huarong thought himself clever and gave him a hidden weapon spirit skill that was even rarer than a movement spirit skill. This type of spirit skill was rare not because it was precious, but because it was very difficult to cultivate and was not very useful. Generally speaking, in the realm below the 4 levels of the Sky Realm, hidden weapons were indeed somewhat useful. Whether it was for sneak attacks or to buy time for oneself to escape, it was a good choice. Thus, many spirit cultivators from all walks of life would more or less carry some hidden weapons. However, as one's cultivation increased, the use of hidden weapons became less and less. For example, a Spirit Pulse Realm expert who had already opened the Spirit Sea could release Spirit Chi from their body and had a protective Spirit Chi. Ordinary hidden weapons would not be able to injure them at all, even if it was a hidden weapon spirit skill. Thus, almost no one was willing to cultivate this type of spirit skill. Go Huarong treated it as trash and threw it to Ling Shiqi. However, no matter how difficult it was to cultivate this spirit skill, it was not a problem for Ling Shiqi. Now, his Devouring Light Flying Dagger, complete, was also at the realm of perfection. In addition, he had not been idle for the past 2 days. He took the time to go to the Spirit Cultivator Business Street and bought 3 flying daggers at a high price. Each of them was a rank 2 spirit artifact. This could be considered one of his trump cards. At this time, Ling Shiqi heard footsteps and stopped thinking. He picked up the teacup and continued to drink tea. Brother Lu, does my tea taste good? Go Huarong's voice sounded. Ling Shiqi put down the teacup and said politely, good tea, good tea. Go Huarong laughed heartily and said, ha, as long as it tastes good. That's right, why did Brother Lu come here today? Ling Shiqi said casually, it's nothing. I just want to ask about the tomb. Go Huarong's eyes flashed and said, Brother Lu can rest assured. With our 2 maps, I believe that you will find the tomb in a few days. To be honest, I still have some trivial matters to attend to. May I ask if Hall Master Go can give me a more precise time? It's not that I'm evading, but this kind of thing is hard to predict. It might take 10 days to half a month to find it, or it might be found tomorrow. Brother Lu, don't be anxious. Why don't you stay in the residence for a few days? If there is any news, you can inform Brother Lu at any time. Ling Shiqi thought about it and nodded his head in agreement. Go Huarong sneered in his heart and clapped his hands. Come, arrange the best room for Brother Lu. Chapter 160. On the morning of the 3rd day, someone knocked on Ling Shiqi's door. Outside was a person dressed as a servant. When he saw Ling Shiqi come out, he bowed and said, Senior Lu, the hall master invites you over. He said he has something to discuss. Ling Shiqi already knew what was going on and immediately followed him to the main hall of the Chinko Hall. At this time, there were more than 20 people in the main hall. Almost all of them were spirit cultivators of the spirit transformation realm. They were divided into 3 groups and stood clearly separated. On one side were the original leaders of the Chinko Hall. They stood behind Go Huarong. On the other side were a few spirit cultivators dressed strangely. Ling Shiqi guessed that they were rogue cultivators recruited by the Chinko Hall. As for the last group, there were 11 people wearing red robes. Each of them had a white feather embroidered on their shoulders. They were from the 3rd-rate Luoyu Manor. Once the Luoyu Manor entered the city, Go Huarong invited them over. It was unknown what method he used to convince the Luoyu Manor to join forces with them. Ling Shiqi was the last person to arrive. Go Huarong saw him and said, This is Brother Lu. I gathered everyone here today to tell you a great piece of news. A great piece of news. Let me guess. What are you guessing for? Even if you think with your knees, you know that Boyuan Ho's tomb has been found. The rogue cultivators immediately shouted excitedly, causing the disciples of the Luoyu Manor to feel disgusted. Go Huarong stretched out his hand and gestured for them to quiet down. He continued, Yes, we have found the location of Boyuan Ho's tomb. However, everyone here must not spread this news. After we are ready, we will immediately set off for the tomb. At this time, an elegant person sitting next to Go Huarong spoke. Hall Master Go, isn't it too ostentatious for us to leave the city with such fanfare? The person who spoke was the leader of the Luoyu Manor, Luo Xiuan of the spiritual pulse realm. His cultivation was at the top of the group, and he was also Go Huarong's thigh. Go Huarong immediately smiled and said, That is indeed the case. Originally, this Go planned to let everyone disguise themselves and leave the city. But this Go thought about it, wouldn't that damage the reputation of Luoyu Manor? Forget it. Even if others find out, it doesn't matter. After all, we've already taken the initiative. Luo Xiuan glanced at Go Huarong expressionlessly. At that moment, Go Huarong felt an invisible pressure pressing down on his heart like a mountain, making him a little breathless. Luo Xiuan said calmly, It's best if Hall Master Go doesn't use such petty tricks in the future. Inferior. Although his tone was very calm, it gave people the feeling that a volcano was about to erupt. Yes, I was muddle-headed. Go Hwarong immediately nodded his head like a hammer and shouted, "Everyone, split up and leave the city." Not long after, Ling Shichi followed the few individual cultivators out of the city. They did not disguise themselves because no one paid much attention to them. Nowadays, there were countless individual cultivators coming and going in Shangyang City every day. It was impossible for everyone to be on guard. After they left the city, they rushed in the direction that Go Hwarong said. They were not stingy with their spiritual power and traveled day and night. They finally arrived at their destination at noon the next day, Flat Top Hill. It was a low hill. The top of the hill was bare, with only a few weeds growing in the cracks of the rocks. It looked very desolate. One of the people in the crowd said in a strange tone, "There's a tomb here. Or Master Ho's tomb. What a joke. Even commoners won't bury themselves in this barren land. It's none of your business. Do you think you've become a master just because you've read 2 books on feng shui?" Another person immediately refuted. "What do you know? Enough, what are you arguing about? There's movement over there. Maybe it's the people from Chinko Hole. Let's go and take a look." Then Ling Shichi and these people went around from the side and saw a large group of people busy with something. When they got close, Wen Shuwei greeted them politely. "Heroes, you must be tired from your journey. Please rest here for a while. The tomb is about to be opened. When the Hall Master and the others arrive, we can go in and explore." Ling Shichi and the others nodded and went to the nearby tents to recover their spiritual power. Ling Shichi found an empty corner and quietly opened his supercilious eyes to explore the interior of the tomb. However, something happened that shocked him. He could not see through the walls of the tomb. Ling Shichi was shocked. His supercilious eyes had an extremely strong ability to see through things. At this time, he could only see through some sand and stones on the surface. Then, he was blocked by a thick wall. This tomb of Boiwanhu is really not simple. I'm afraid there's something like an isolation array inside. Ling Shichi thought silently. In the end, he could only close his supercilious eyes and go back to recover his spiritual power. In the afternoon, people from Chinko Hall and Luo Yu Manor arrived one after another. As soon as Go Hwarong arrived, Wen Shuwei immediately said something. Go Hwarong's face showed some joy. Then, he walked over and said loudly, "Everyone, the door of the tomb is about to open. We have the advantage. After entering the tomb, as long as we get the tomb, I will fulfill my promise." However, just as he finished speaking, there were sounds of footsteps behind him. Judging by the sound, there were many people. What's going on? Go Hwarong and the others' faces changed. Everyone hurried forward and saw a group of guards wearing silver light armor rushing over in an orderly manner. Behind them were dozens of loose cultivators and more than half of them were people. At the front of the light armor guards, there were 10 spirit cultivators from Heavenly Cloud Tower. These people were from the City Lord Mansion. The leader was the commander of the city guards, Zhong Lin, who was the temporary city lord. He was burly, wearing silver armor and holding a huge sword. He was looking at Go Hwarong with a cold smile. Beside him was the Deacon Elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Yu Jinyu, who was staring straight at Luo Xiuwen. In his eyes, among so many people, only Luo Xiuwen was his opponent. Go Hwarong's face was gloomy as he shouted, "Zhong Lin. How did you know about this place?" Zhong Lin's deep voice sounded, "Of course, someone told me." As soon as he said that, Go Hwarong looked left and right. At this moment, 3 words appeared in his mind, "There's a traitor." He was furious. Damn it, if I find out who leaked the news, I'll tear him into pieces. At this moment, there was a loud boom from the side. Wen Shuwei ran to Go Hwarong and shouted, "Hall Master, it's open. The cave entrance is open." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Zhonglin, the city guards, and the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. He was stunned. Chapter 161. In front of Boiwanhu's mausoleum, Chinko Hall and the city guards were confronting each other. Go Huarong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He knew that there must be a traitor on his side. Zhonglin only came today, which meant that he had just learned the news. That excluded Chinko Hall and the people who came the day before yesterday. The several leaders around him had been with him all the time and had no chance to pass on the news. The people of Luoyu Manor were all arrogant and disdained to leak the news at all. Then, it could only be the rogue cultivators who left the city first. The traitor must be among them. Unfortunately, there was no time for him to find the traitor. Go Huarong could only glare fiercely at the rogue cultivators. At this time, Zhonglin spoke. Hall Master Go, the news of Boiwanhu's mausoleum was spread by the city lord's mansion. Otherwise, even if you have the map in your hand, it would be a waste of paper. Since we're all here and the entrance is open, why don't we go in and explore together? That sounds nice. We spent so much effort to find the mausoleum and you want to reap the benefits with just a few words. Isn't that ridiculous? Go Huarong said unceremoniously. Zhonglin shook his head and said, Hall Master Go, if we continue to delay, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to go in together. Go Huarong frowned when he heard this. Immediately, he thought of something and his face changed slightly. Ling Shiqi rolled his eyes and also thought of the meaning of Zhonglin's words. That was, rogue cultivators. There were now a large number of rogue cultivators gathered in Shangyang City, and only a few of them were recruited by Chinko Hall and the city lord's mansion. There were hundreds and thousands of rogue cultivators in the city. Ling Shiqi and the others disguised themselves and went out of the city in batches, so they naturally did not attract the attention of the rogue cultivators. However, the city guards went out of the city with great fanfare. No matter how stupid the rogue cultivators were, they would know that Boiwanhu's mausoleum must be here. It would not be long before a large number of rogue cultivators arrived. Those rogue cultivators might be scrupulous about the people of Tianyun Tower and Luoyu Manor, and even give some face to the city guards, but they would never give face to Chinko Hall. Apart from that, there was another huge hidden danger, which was another third-rate sect, the Haoyi sect. The Haoyi sect didn't come into contact with any forces after entering Upper Yang City. They just stayed in the inn and were probably on their way here. In the end, Go Huarong made a concession. However, he put forward the condition of letting the city guards enter first. At first glance, this approach seemed a little stupid. It was equivalent to giving away the initiative, but in fact, it was a good idea. That was because there were bound to be some traps in the mausoleum. There might even be formations and prohibitions. The first person to enter would be equivalent to stepping on a mine. Zhonglin glanced at Yu Jinyu, who was beside him. Seeing his unapproachable look, he thought about it and agreed to Go Huarong's condition. Soon after, the people of Chinko Hall opened up a small path. When the city guards arrived at the pitch-black entrance of the mausoleum, several dozen city guards with shields surrounded the others and stepped into the mausoleum step by step. After that, Go Huarong and Luoyu Manor entered together. Ling Shiqi was at the back of the group. He followed everyone into the legendary mausoleum of Marquis Boiwanhu without any sense of presence. As soon as he entered the mausoleum, Ling Shiqi felt a gust of cold wind. It was obviously a gentle breeze, but it made his body feel cold from the inside out. He looked up, but the mausoleum was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. Huff! Huff! At this time, torches lit up one after another in front of them. Go Huarong was obviously well prepared. With the help of the light from the torches, Ling Shiqi saw that they were in a passageway that was neither wide nor narrow. The walls on both sides of the passageway were bare. However, Ling Shiqi noticed that there were a lot of traces of heavy objects on the ground. However, these traces were not so clear over the years. Then Ling Shiqi pulled down the hood on his head, covering most of his face. Then, his eyes turned blue and white as he activated Byakugan. Previously, he activated Byakugan outside the mausoleum, but it was blocked and he couldn't see the situation inside. Now that he was inside, Byakugan could see most of the layout of the mausoleum, but there were still some places that he couldn't see through. At this moment, in Ling Shiqi's vision, there were several traps not far in front of this passageway, but he didn't say anything. Sure enough, after a dozen breaths, there was a ding-ding-dang-dang sound mixed with a few screams. It was the city guards walking in front who accidentally triggered the trap. Hearing this, Go Hwarong sneered with a hint of schadenfreude and asked everyone to stop. After there was no sound in front of them, everyone continued to move forward. It didn't take long for them to see the ground full of arrows and the bodies of several guards. Go Hwarong said coldly, "Serves you right." At this time, Ling Shiqi, who was walking at the back, suddenly moved his body and leaned against the wall on the right. Because he was walking at the back, and everyone's attention was attracted by the front, no one noticed his strange move. He did this because he had already used Byakugan to discover that there was actually a trap here. However, this trap was very sinister. It wasn't activated once it was triggered, but after it was triggered a second time. This way, they could guard against the second batch of people who entered and returned. There was a soft, caw sound. Someone had triggered the trap. Suddenly, the wall above the passageway suddenly split into two sides, and then countless sharp spikes fell down. What was even more terrifying was that these spikes were shining with spiritual light. Everyone was startled. Go Hwarong immediately shouted, "Not good. Run!" The spikes didn't cover the entire passageway, and there was still some space on both sides. Everyone immediately hid on both sides of the passageway. Unfortunately, most of these people thought that the trap had been triggered by the city guards, so they weren't too vigilant. Even though they were warned, they were still half a step too late, and finally died after being pierced by countless spikes. Go Hwarong and Luo Xiuwen's faces turned pale when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a trap, and they were caught off guard. What was worse was that this trap actually killed about 30% of the people. Among them were 2 disciples of Luo Yu Manor. All of this happened too suddenly. Even Luo Xiuwen didn't have time to do anything. Otherwise, he would have had a chance to save the 2 disciples. Now, some people had died before the tomb was found, and they had lost even more people than the city guards. They were at a disadvantage all of a sudden. Ling Shiqi also pretended to be panicked. He was still inconspicuous in the crowd. Chapter 162. The people from Chinko Hall and Luo Yu Manor had triggered the second mechanism, which naturally attracted the attention of the city guards and Tianyun Tower. Zhong Lin had a puzzled look on his face, but a glint flashed across Yu Jinyu's eyes. She said, "So there is a mechanism that can be triggered twice. This mechanism is extremely complicated to set up. It seems like this mausoleum is not as simple as we thought." Zhong Lin said, "Elder Yu is really knowledgeable. I admire you." Yu Jinyu did not speak and did not want to talk to him. Zhong Lin's expression stiffened, but he did not say anything. He just instructed his men to be more careful. On Ling Shiqi's side, Luo Xiuwen, who rarely spoke along the way, said unhappily, "Hall Master Go, since we have entered the mausoleum, let's split up. Luo Yu Manor will stay behind and help Hall Master Go block the rogue cultivators who are coming." Go Hwarong knew that he was going to take the thunder for Luo Yu Manor. He wanted to refuse, but he could not because he could not afford to offend Luo Xiuwen. He had to rely on him. This was the difference in strength. It was also the huge difference between a small gang and a spirit cultivator sect. Go Hwarong had no choice but to nod his head with a grim expression. Next, Chinko Hall and the loose cultivators they recruited walked in front while the remaining 9 cultivators from Fallen Feathers Manor walked behind them. This time, every one of them took one step at a time, moving with extreme caution. Ling Shiqi had a headache. Originally, he was at the back and could use the supercilious eyes to observe more. Now that he was in the middle, especially with Luo Xiaowen behind him, he did not dare to make any small moves. He was afraid that this Spirit Pulse Realm Master would notice something. Then, they triggered 1 or 2 second mechanisms in the passage. But because everyone was very careful this time, only a few rogue cultivators died. At the end of the passage was a huge tomb chamber. It was so big that people mistook it for a square. When Ling Shiqi and the rest arrived, they saw the city guards standing neatly at the side. Beside them were people from Tianyun Tower and some rogue cultivators. Zhonglin heard the noise and turned to look. When he saw that many people from Chinko Hall had died, he felt a sense of relief. But his face was still very serious. Not only him, but Go Hwarong, Luo Xiaowen, and Ling Shiqi also had grave expressions. This was because there were over 1,000 humanoid things standing in this huge tomb. These things looked no different from ordinary people, but they were all lifeless like statues. Their eyes were also staring straight ahead, which was a bit creepy. What was even stranger was that these people were all wearing armor and holding spears in their hands. They were like a group of Yin soldiers. Luo Xiaowen said softly, "Could this be a corpse puppet?" "Does Mr. Luo know what these things are?" Go Hwarong asked tentatively. Luo Xiaowen did not hide anything and said, "I've seen it in a secret scroll in the village. This corpse puppet is a variant of the puppet technique. It was created by the corpse refining sect a few hundred years ago. This kind of corpse puppet used living people as materials to refine them into puppets. Moreover, they couldn't die during the refining process. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. After the refining was successful, the corpse puppet could still exert more than half of its strength before it was born. Coupled with the corpse refining sect's spiritual techniques, it could be said to be fearless and powerful. But later, because this method was too vicious, the corpse refining sect was destroyed by several spirit cultivator sects together. I just didn't expect Boiwanhu, who had outstanding military achievements, to use such vicious methods to refine corpse puppets." After hearing Luo Xiaowen's words, many people gasped in shock. It seemed that these corpse puppets were refined into puppets when they were still alive. That kind of inhuman pain was terrifying just thinking about it. Everyone could not help but snort at Boiwanhu in their hearts. However, Ling Shiqi felt that something was wrong. Because he cultivated the 7 evil blood art, although he could not exert the characteristics of this technique, he was more sensitive to evil spirits. Logically speaking, this kind of corpse puppet should have strong resentment and evil spirits, but Ling Shiqi did not feel the slightest bit of evil spirits from them. He even vaguely felt an indescribable feeling. Ling Shiqi continued to look back and found that there was a door at the back of the corpse puppets that led to another place. That place was also a place that Byakugan could not penetrate. He guessed that that might be the place where Boiwanhu was buried. However, if he wanted to go there, he had to go through these corpse puppets first. There were more than 1,000 corpse puppets, and each of them had excellent weapons and armor. Although he had not fought with them yet, he could tell that they were not easy to deal with. Whether it was the city guards, Chinko Hall, Tianyun Tower, or Luoyu Manor, they did not have many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm under them. Most of them were in the pure spirit realm. However, both sides added up to about 300 to 400 people. With such a lineup, even if they could win against the corpse puppets, they would suffer heavy losses. Therefore, neither side wanted to be the vanguard. At this time, there was a burst of noise from the passage behind them. Not long after, a large group of rogue cultivators rushed over. There were about 200 to 300 people. When these rogue cultivators saw the corpse puppets, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. However, there were all kinds of people among the rogue cultivators, and there were a few who were bold enough to poke the corpse puppets. This touch did not matter, but all the corpse puppets trembled slightly at this moment. Thousands of corpse puppets stiffly turned a few times, and then rushed over together. The first few people who touched the corpse puppets were pierced by the corpse puppet spears in the blink of an eye, and they could not be more dead. The sudden awakening of the corpse puppets caught everyone off guard. Among them, 3 corpse puppets attacked Ling Shiqi at the same time. However, Ling Shiqi did not panic. He did not dodge, but unsheathed his spirit saber and took the initiative to meet them. He wanted to see how strong these corpse puppets were. With a clang, Ling Shiqi's scimitar blocked the spears of the 3 corpse puppets. Immediately after, 3 huge forces were transmitted, shaking his hand until it went numb. Each corpse puppet actually has the strength of a peak pure spirit realm cultivator. Ling Shiqi secretly exclaimed. Then, something even stranger happened. The 3 corpse puppets actually split up. One of them stalled Ling Shiqi from the front, and the other 2 surrounded him from the side. They actually had a certain level of consciousness. A hint of surprise appeared in Ling Shiqi's eyes, but he could not delay any longer because several corpse puppets were rushing towards him from behind. Then, Ling Shiqi used spirit steps and easily dodged the attacks of the 3 corpse puppets. Then, with a shake of the scimitar in his hand, hundreds of saber shadows directly enveloped the 3 corpse puppets. The saber light was like a storm, and in a few breaths, the 3 corpse puppets were cut into pieces. Chapter 163. Ling Shiqi pulled himself out and looked around. The people from the various forces had gathered and were fighting for themselves. There were not many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm in the city guards in Chinko Hall, but they had the advantage of numbers. At this moment, they formed a circle and hugged each other. The people outside were injured or did not have enough spirit energy, so the people inside immediately went up and stabilized their position. Although the people in Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor were few, they were all elite disciples in the spirit transformation realm. There were even spirit pulse realm experts. At this moment, Heavenly Cloud Tower's Deacon Elder Yu Jinyu suddenly slapped out. A majestic palm force surged out and instantly destroyed more than a dozen corpse puppets. Luo Xiuan of Luo Yu Manor actually used a brush as his weapon. He swung the brush freely among the corpse puppets. Every time he rode, he would kill a corpse puppet. These corpse puppets were no threat to the 2 of them at all. Only the rogue cultivators were killed by the corpse puppets. They were not strong enough and could not trust each other to work together. Almost half of them were killed by the corpse puppets. The rogue cultivators standing near the passage were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran back to the passage to leave. However, before they could run a few steps, they ran into 5 people dressed in black. These 5 people had pale skin and were expressionless. A rogue cultivator who ran out accidentally bumped into one of the black-clothed men because he didn't look back. The black-clothed man glanced at him and immediately opened his hand, crushing the rogue cultivator's throat with lightning speed. The remaining dozen or so people stopped abruptly and looked at each other in dismay. However, they immediately ignored the dead man and wanted to continue moving forward. Unexpectedly, the faces of the other 4 black-clothed men revealed a wisp of desire, and then they suddenly attacked those rogue cultivators. This attack shocked the rogue cultivators. Only then did they realize that the 5 black-robed men were all in the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. How could these rogue cultivators be their opponents? In the blink of an eye, they were killed in an extremely tragic manner. The 5 black-clothed men walked into the huge tomb with blood on their lapels. Ling Shiqi, who was closest to the passageway, noticed them immediately. Then, he sensed a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood from the 5 men. These people must be the devil cultivators from Shangyang City. They're as cruel as the rumors say. No wonder they're so popular. Now, only the people from the Howie sect had yet to appear. What were they waiting for? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor will snatch everything away? Ling Shiqi was dealing with the zombies around him with ease, so he had the time to observe and think about other things. He didn't kill the corpse puppet as quickly as he did in the beginning. Instead, he led the corpse puppet to move left and right to buy time. In other words, he was slacking. The 5 fiendish cultivators seemed to feel that they had not killed enough. After entering, they took the initiative to kill the corpse puppets. Furthermore, their attacks were straightforward and ruthless, and they cooperated very well with each other. In terms of killing the corpse puppets, they were not slower than Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen. As the number of corpse puppets decreased, the pressure on everyone lessened. Gradually, the spirit cultivators took control of the battle. At this time, Ling Shiqi was no longer slacking. After killing 20 to 30 corpse puppets in a row, all the corpse puppets had been wiped out. At this time, there were only about 100 people left on the Chinko Hall side. The city guards were slightly better. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luo Yu Manor, and the 5 fiendish cultivators did not suffer much damage. They only consumed more spiritual power. The most miserable were the rogue cultivators. Not long ago, there were hundreds of rogue cultivators, but now there were only a few dozen left. This was the sorrow of rogue cultivators. They did not have good cultivation talent and did not have good cultivation methods or spiritual skills. However, they also wanted to go further, so they stepped into this tomb to fight for an opportunity. Unfortunately, more than half of them had died before they even saw the tomb. Ling Shiqi could not help but feel a trace of sorrow for them. Rogue cultivators could be said to be the lowest existence among spirit cultivators. Today was the golden age of spirit cultivators. However, any slightly better cultivation methods, spiritual skills, and even cultivation resources were firmly in the hands of various spirit cultivator sects and empires. However, regardless of whether it was spirit cultivator sects or empires, they would only recruit people with decent cultivation talent. If they really could not do it, they would still have connections. However, the vast majority of people in this world had neither talent nor connections. They could only be reduced to rogue cultivators. All day long, they fought for a little bit of resources until they bled and even lost their lives. Of course, this thought only flashed through Ling Shiqi's mind. He immediately approached the crowd of Chinko Hall and looked at the door behind the corpse puppets. Everyone gathered in front of the door. The door was 20 feet tall and smooth. The strange thing was that there was not even a door knocker. How do I open this door? At this time, Yu Jinyu walked forward and stretched out a finger. Immediately, a white finger force shot out from his body and shot towards the door. With a ding sound, Yu Jinyu's finger hit the front of the door. A translucent light curtain flashed, and blocked this finger. There's a restriction. Yu Jinyu shouted. Luo Xiuwen walked over. His eyes shone with spiritual light as he said, it should be a pure defensive restriction. It's not very strong. Let's try to break it together. Yu Jinyu nodded and said, okay. Then, Luo Xiuwen's brush tapped lightly. The seemingly ordinary brush in his hand was like a sharp sword, giving people a feeling of extreme sharpness. At this moment, he gathered all his spiritual power at the tip of the brush. Then, he stabbed out and broke the surface with a single point. Yu Jinyu slapped out a few times. Every slap was majestic. Every slap hit the same place on the door. That was also the place where Luo Xiuwen stabbed out. Under the combined efforts of the 2 Spirit Pulse Realm experts, the restriction on the door was quickly broken. Luo Xiuwen and Yu Jinyu pushed open the door. When everyone saw what was inside, they were all shocked. Ling Shiqi was the same. Just as they opened the stone door, on top of the flat roof, 9 spirit cultivators in white sat in a circle. In the circle was a strange array. In addition, there was an old man with a long beard who was frowning and muttering to himself, "Strange, strange, this place is not a place with good feng shui. This is clearly a place of evil." In this way, Bo Yuanho's corpse will probably be eroded by the evil aura. Now that more than 300 years have passed, it is very likely that it will condense into a fiend corpse. He was a spirit aperture realm expert when he was alive. If he condensed into a fiend corpse, it would be a disaster. No, the evil aura here is a bit strange. There doesn't seem to be much negative aura in it. Strange, strange, why did Bo Yuanho bury himself here? What is he doing? Chapter 164. After the door was opened, before anyone could see what was inside, boundless yin qi gushed out at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Ling Shiqi felt a little chilly when he entered the mausoleum, then the yin qi was rushing toward him now. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Some of them were unable to withstand the cold and began to shiver on the spot. There were even some whose bodies were invaded by the baleful aura, triggering the negative emotions in their hearts and causing them to go crazy on the spot. Of course, they were quickly killed by the others. Ling Shiqi also felt a desire to kill in his mind. Fortunately, his mental strength was not weak. He mobilized his mental strength in time to suppress the impulse. What surprised him was that the 5 cruel demonic cultivators did not show any abnormalities. When the yin qi gradually dissipated, Ling Shiqi followed the crowd into the tomb. The area here was not small, just a little smaller than the tomb outside. There were circles of pitch-black iron pillars around the tomb, and each of the iron pillars was connected by chains. A heavy coffin was suspended in the middle of the layers of chains. The coffin was pale gold in color, and it was engraved with strange patterns. This should be the main tomb of Boiwanhu. Ling Shiqi opened his byakugan again, but he still could not see the inside of the coffin. Seeing this coffin, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen's eyes could not help but burn. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's eyes lit up. The others were even more unbearable. The word greed was written all over their faces, and some even drooled. Ling Shiqi, on the other hand, had been observing the iron pillars and chains. This scene gave him a sense of déjà vu. He thought for a moment and finally remembered that when the fusion blood beast appeared on the 5th floor of the blood-colored tower, the formation that trapped it was similar to the one here. It was just that the formation in this tomb was much larger than that time. He secretly guessed, could it be that this place is suppressing or sealing something? The yin qi just now was also very strange. Could it be suppressing Boiwanhu? While Ling Shiqi was thinking, the others couldn't help but talk about it. This must be Marquis Boyuan's coffin. Without a doubt. Such a big coffin. How much gold and silver are there in it? Gold, silver, and treasures are nothing. There must be natural treasures inside. Maybe there are even cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. So what if there is? It has nothing to do with us. In the end, it still belongs to those few people. The people he was referring to were naturally Yu Jinyu, Luo Xiuwen, Go Huarong, and Zhong Lin. At this moment, the 4 of them were discussing something in low voices for the first time. Yu Jinyu said straightforwardly, "Who will open the coffin?" Luo Xiuwen and Go Huarong fell silent. This tomb was full of traps. There must be some traps on the last coffin. Whoever opened the coffin would be in danger. The corner of Yu Jinyu's mouth twitched as she continued, "Why don't we let those people come?" As he spoke, he pointed at the remaining dozens of rogue cultivators. The other 3 immediately understood what she meant and nodded. Then, the people from the 4 forces surrounded the rogue cultivators. Those people felt something was wrong, but it was too late to run now. What are you doing? Eugenie's gaze fell on the person who spoke. It was a middle-aged man who looked a little sloppy. He felt a chill down his spine when he was stared at by Eugenie. Eugenie pointed at him and said, "You, go open the coffin." The sloppy middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. "What? No, I won't go." Eugenie's gaze turned cold as she sneered. "Humph, this is not up to you. If you want to live, go open the coffin. Don't make me say it a third time." The sloppy middle-aged man saw the murderous intent in Eugenie's eyes. If he didn't agree, he would be lying here forever. It was dangerous to open the coffin. If he didn't open the coffin, he would die. This was an easy choice to make. He could only compromise. He mustered up his courage and walked through the chains to get close to the coffin. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Ling Shiqi also stared at this person to see if there was any danger in the process of walking into the coffin. However, to everyone's surprise, the sloppy middle-aged man actually reached the bottom of the coffin. Ling Shiqi thought to himself, aren't these chains some kind of array formation? Maybe I'm thinking too much. The sloppy middle-aged man jumped on top of the coffin. Although the coffin was suspended in the air, it didn't move at all. The sloppy middle-aged man moved to the side and stood on the iron pillar at the corner of the coffin. He rubbed his hands and grabbed the coffin lid with both hands. Ah! The sloppy middle-aged man tried to lift the coffin lid with all his strength, but the lid didn't move at all. Then, his spirit force surged and there was a faint light on his arms. His face turned red, but he still couldn't open the coffin. Eugenie pointed at 3 people in a row and said, you, and you, go over too. The 3 people he pointed at were all rogue cultivators at the spirit transformation realm, so the 3 of them could only go over with a calm face. They and the sloppy middle-aged man stood at the 4 corners. Then, they used all of their spirit force to grab the coffin lid. With a "jiet" sound, the coffin lid moved. The 4 of them were overjoyed. They immediately increased their strength and suddenly lifted the coffin lid. Ling Shiqi's expectation of a scene filled with baleful aura did not happen. He immediately activated his supercilious eyes and looked over. Soon after, his greenish-white eyes were filled with astonishment as he quietly retreated. The 4 people who opened the coffin subconsciously looked down and saw that the coffin was filled with a dense light black fog. There didn't seem to be any treasures in the fog. They only saw a burly figure wearing heavy armor, holding a heavy sword, and a helmet. The helmet only revealed 2 holes. However, in the next moment, the 2 holes lit up. Whoosh! Before the others had time to rush to the coffin, for black fog suddenly rushed out of the coffin. It turned into a huge ghost claw and instantly grabbed the 4 people who opened the coffin and dragged them into the coffin. Immediately, there was a burst of shrill screams. The coffin trembled slightly and then there was no more sound. Eugenie and Luo Xuan looked at each other. This situation was indeed beyond their expectations. The aura from the 4 fog was stronger than theirs. At this moment, an old man in white rushed in from the door behind them. He shouted in a panic, "Don't open the coffin, don't open the coffin." As soon as he finished speaking, the black fog in the coffin instantly rushed to the sky. Chapter 165. The old man's voice attracted everyone's attention. The people from Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luoyu Manor immediately recognized him. This person was the array master of the Howie sect, Lu Leking. He was quite famous and respected in this area. Even in the entire Donglin County, he was quite famous. Eugenie and Luo Xuan were puzzled. They thought that the Howie sect was also here to fight for Boiwanhu's burial items, but now it seemed that was not the case. As for Lula Cheng's words, it made their hearts skip a beat. The strange scene that happened in the coffin was something they had all seen with their own eyes. Now that Lu Leking, the array master, came running in a panic to say that he could not open the coffin, he should know some unknown secrets. However, there was no time for them to think carefully now because endless black fog suddenly burst out from the coffin and rushed straight up. The black fog instantly filled the entire tomb. Everyone was in the black fog. The black fog was like a living thing that kept drilling into people's bodies. The black fog entered the body and quickly absorbed the flesh and blood in the body. In the blink of an eye, several people were sucked dry by the black fog. At this time, people remembered to use spiritual power to isolate the black fog. Ling Shiqi did the same. He had already started retreating the moment the coffin was opened. Now, he had retreated to the vicinity of the door. There was relatively less black fog here. He used spiritual power to cover his body's surface to prevent the black fog from entering his body. However, this way, his spiritual power was rapidly consumed at every moment. It was not a long-term solution. At this time, Ling Shiqi looked up and saw that the black fog that had sucked the flesh and blood was feeding back into the coffin. Then, there was a soft sound from inside. Then, a tall and mighty figure stood up from the coffin. His whole body was covered in heavy armor, only revealing a pair of scarlet eyes. Ling Shiqi seemed to see a touch of helplessness in those eyes, but it was immediately replaced by boundless anger. He. A rogue cultivator was so scared that his mouth trembled and he could not speak. Even Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan could not keep calm at this time. They could clearly feel that the person's aura was far beyond theirs. Yu Jinyu said in a low voice, "Could he be Marquis Buyuan?" At this time, Lu Luqing came over and sighed deeply. In the end, I was still a step too late. That's right, he is Buyuan Ho. Or rather, the corpse of Marquis Buyuan. Fiendish corpse. Even though Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan were well informed, they had never heard of this term. Lu Luqing quickly explained, only corpses buried in the land of extreme evil and corroded by the baleful aura for hundreds of years have the slightest chance of turning into fiendish corpses. Don't tell me you didn't notice that this flat-topped hill is a Yin fiend land. Who would build their own tomb in such a place? That Buyuan Ho had buried him here and laid down the fiend-gathering array in order to condense his corpse into a fiend corpse. But doing so would go against the will of the heavens. It would be equivalent to cutting off the future of his bloodline. In other words, he would have no descendants. Lu Luqing didn't deliberately conceal his words, and everyone present heard it, immediately causing an uproar. And my bloodline? Is it that mysterious? If that's the case, why would Buyuan Ho do this? No wonder I've never heard of the story of Buyuan Ho's descendants. Didn't his entire family get killed? How could there be descendants? But isn't this the same as ending his bloodline? Could it be that Buyuan Ho wanted to refine himself into a fiend corpse that led to the extermination of his entire family? Ling Shiqi didn't have the leisure to care about this. At this moment, he was still staring at Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse with vigilance. He could also feel the terrifying aura of Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse. If a fight broke out, Ling Shiqi would have to give up this opportunity and turn around to escape. But the strange thing was that Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse didn't do anything even though everyone had been whispering for a long time. Instead, the black fog in the tomb slowly faded. Lu Luqing continued, what I just said is true. Do you still remember why Buyuan Ho's entire family got exterminated? It was because he was found to have collected huge amounts of wealth and privately manufactured military equipment. In fact, what he built was this tomb. At that time, he had already made up his mind to refine himself into a fiend corpse, even if his entire family got exterminated and his bloodline ended. Yu Jinyu couldn't help but ask, then what was his purpose in doing this? What did he get out of it? Alas! Lu Luqing suddenly sighed and said, "At first, I was also very puzzled. At first, I thought the tomb's array was a fiend-gathering array. But I suddenly realized that it wasn't just a fiend-gathering array, there was also a fiend suppression array below. Bui Yuanho was actually using fiends to suppress fiends. He would rather turn himself into a fiend corpse and end his bloodline, but in fact, he wanted to use his fiend corpse to suppress something. The corpse puppets outside were his personal guards who were willing to accompany him in his ambitions. They all volunteered to be refined into corpse puppets so that they could guard this place forever." After Lu Luqing said this, the tomb suddenly quieted down. Ling Shiqi also slowly straightened his body. At first, when he first saw Bui Yuanho's life history, he thought that Bui Yuanho wasn't a person who fought for power and profit. It was a bit strange that he would conspire against others. At that time, he thought that people would change, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. But when he got more detailed information from Mao Kai, he felt that Bui Yuanho's effort to build a tomb for himself only resulted in the extermination of his entire family. The gains didn't make up for the losses. Not long ago, when he saw the thousands of corpse puppets outside, Ling Shiqi's impression of Bui Yuanho was extremely bad. Perhaps the one recorded in history and information wasn't the real Bui Yuanho. The real Marquis Bui Yuan had created so many undead puppets to protect his mausoleum, so he must have been a vicious and merciless person. But now, after hearing Lu Luqing's words, he changed his opinion of Bui Yuanho once again. It turned out that everything Bui Yuanho had done was to suppress an extremely dangerous ghost. Even if his entire family was exterminated, even if he had to bear a lifetime of infamy, even if his name would go down in history. Ling Shiqi didn't expect that there would be such a righteous person like Bui Yuanho in this world. Not only him, but everyone else was the same. Many people showed ashamed expressions at this time. If that was really the case, then they were actually coveting Bui Yuanho's burial items, which made them feel a little ashamed. But more people still had an indifferent attitude. Their eyes were still staring at Bui Yuanho's coffin, hoping to see what was inside. At this time, Ling Shiqi suddenly thought of a question, which happened to be asked by Luo Xiuwen: what exactly is Bui Yuanho trying to suppress? Chapter 166. Before Lu Luqing could answer, 5 shadows suddenly appeared under Bui Yuanho's coffin. They each held an unknown spherical object in their hands, then raised it up and pressed it against the bottom of Bui Yuanho's coffin. Then, 5 pitch-black streams of ink gushed out of the spherical objects and wrapped around Bui Yuanho's coffin like 5 tentacles. At the same time, Bui Yuanho's coffin lit up with a pale golden light, but it was suppressed by the ink streams as soon as it appeared. Bui Yuanho's corpse began to tremble all over, and the black mist around him quickly faded. He let out an unwilling roar and swung his heavy sword down. However, the 5 streams of ink were so tough that they were not cut in half. This series of changes was unexpected to everyone, especially Lu Luqing. His expression changed abruptly as he shouted, "Quick, stop them. Otherwise, we'll all die." "Ha ha ha, it's too late." The 5 demonic cultivators laughed. At this time, the black mist around Bui Yuanho's body was very little, and his aura was rapidly weakening. At the same time, the whole tomb began to tremble slightly. The trembling was getting more and more intense. Clanking noises could be heard from the chains in the tomb. Soon after, specks of light blossomed from the iron pillars that were connected to the chains. The light extended along the chains, and in the blink of an eye, all the chains were covered in a layer of light. An extremely complicated array appeared on the floor of the tomb. At the center of the array was Bui Yuanho's coffin. At this time, the ground there was constantly moving up and down, as if something was about to rush out. Ling Shiqi opened his supercilious eye. Although he still could not see what was under the array, he could see that the spiritual power of the array was slowly weakening. In other words, the array would not last long, and the thing that had been suppressed by Boi Wanhu for more than 300 years would soon break free. Ling Shiqi already had plans to retreat. Unfortunately, just as he was about to leave, Boi Wanhu's corpse suddenly stabbed his heavy sword into the coffin, transferring all the black mist on his body into it. The iron pillars suddenly spread out, and the layers of chains danced in the air, surrounding the entire tomb. Even the door behind them was shut with a loud bang. Ling Shiqi was standing next to the door. He was one step away from leaving this place, but he was still one step too late. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately executed the hand of the earth with the intention of burrowing through the ground. However, to his surprise, he was actually unable to soften the ground here. Ling Shiqi's heart couldn't help but sink. But on second thought, with such a complicated array formation, it was reasonable for the hand of the earth to fail. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The hand of the earth could be said to be the most comprehensive spiritual technique he had developed. It could be used to attack, retreat, and escape. Especially the earth burrowing technique, which he loved to use the most. Who would have thought that he would suffer a setback today? Escape. There was no escape now. Ling Shiqi could only let go of this thought. Next, he had to think about how to survive. If we kill them now, we still have a chance to stop it from breaking out of the array. Lu Leking hurriedly shouted, and then he rushed over without a care for his own safety. He was also a spiritual pulse realm expert. Although he was not young, his body was very agile. He jumped over countless chains and quickly approached the 5 demonic cultivators. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen knew that things were serious and followed closely behind. Ling Shiqi looked at the 5 demonic cultivators with a cold expression in his eyes. He held 2 scimitars behind his back and rushed over like a jaguar. At this time, almost all the spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm attacked the 5 demonic cultivators. Seeing this, the demonic cultivators laughed even more arrogantly. The aura on their bodies suddenly increased by several times. It turned out that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. It was just that they had used some method to hide their cultivation. At this time, 90% of the people suddenly stopped. That was a total of 5 spiritual pulse experts. Wouldn't they be courting death if they rushed up again? Thus, only 6 figures continued to rush toward them. They were Lu Leking and the other 2 spiritual pulse realm experts, Zhong Lin, Go Huarong, and Ling Shiqi. Lu Liqing's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Don't be afraid, they are suppressing Boi Wanhu's corpse with all their strength. They can't move at all." Hearing this, some of the people who stopped gritted their teeth and continued to rush over, while some remained where they were. In the blink of an eye, Lu Leking and the other 2 were the first to get close. Lu Leking held a disc in his hand. At this time, purple spirit inscriptions burst out from the disc and formed a small array in front of him. He pressed the disc on the ground, and the purple spirit inscriptions immediately spread out and surrounded the 5 demonic cultivators. Then, Lu Leking sat cross-legged and said, "I will maintain the little thunder cloud array to limit their strength. I'll leave the rest to you." As soon as he finished speaking, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a finger shot out from the little thundercloud array. Because the 5 demonic cultivators had to hold the ball-shaped object with one hand to suppress Boi Wanhu's corpse, they could not move. This lightning bolt directly hit one of them, causing him to tremble. Then, the second lightning bolt began to brew. At this time, Yu Jinyu clapped her hands, and 2 huge palm shadows that could be seen with the naked eye whizzed out. Luo Xiuwen used his brush as a sword and stabbed out an extremely thin ink-colored sword light. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin actually joined hands to attack one of them for the first time. Ling Shiqi suddenly unsheathed his dual blades. The moment they were unsheathed, the 2 blades bloomed with a glaring purple blade light. The blade light was like a crescent moon, cold and sharp as it slashed toward the last demonic cultivator. Just as their attacks were about to hit them, the demonic cultivators suddenly stomped, and a terrifying demonic aura rose from their feet to protect them. Eugenie's palms continuously twisted the demonic aura, but Luo Xiuan's sword light pierced through the demonic aura. Unfortunately, the demonic cultivator he aimed at was already prepared, and the sword only pierced his arm. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's joint attack was completely blocked by the demonic aura, and it did not even tremble. As for Ling Shiqi, he slashed out 2 crescent light slashes at the same time. The 2 crescent light slashes crisscrossed and landed on the demonic aura, causing it to weaken a lot. After a few breaths, the crescent light slashes forcefully exhausted a large amount of demonic aura, but the blade light itself also consumed a large amount of spiritual power and finally dissipated into nothingness. But even so, the others were still shocked, especially the 3 spiritual pulse realm cultivators, who knew the power of the demonic aura the best. This unremarkable little old man could actually force the demonic aura to this extent, which was really beyond their expectations. Chapter 167. In terms of pure offensive power, Ling Shiqi's 2 blade rays were only slightly weaker than Eugenie's. It had to be known that Eugenie was at the Spirit Pulse realm, but Ling Shiqi was only at the 6th level of the Spirit Transformation realm. Looking at his attire, he didn't look like someone from a spirit cultivation sect. They didn't expect a small rogue cultivator to have such strength. Go Huarong couldn't help but widen his eyes. He was the one who brought Ling Shiqi here. He had always thought that Ling Shiqi was just an ordinary rogue cultivator who obtained the map by luck and never took him seriously. He even wanted to kill Ling Shiqi. Now that he saw how strong Ling Shiqi was, Go Huarong was glad that he didn't make a move against Ling Shiqi. Otherwise, he might have been the one to die. Seeing this, Zhong Lin secretly said, "So it's him." That day, when Ling Shiqi tried to assassinate Bao Pingyi, he and Chu Xinran had secretly seen a few shocking saber lights from afar, which were exactly the same as what was happening now. Therefore, Zhong Lin knew that Ling Shiqi was Bao Pingyi's killer. Although Lu Luqing was a little surprised, he was still maintaining the formation and couldn't pay too much attention to it. Immediately after, 2 more purple lightning bolts shot out from the formation. Moreover, it hit the person who was injured just now. The devil cultivator immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, but his face revealed a crazy smile. "Ha ha ha, it's out, it's out, it's out, just wait for your death." "Not good." Lu Luqing suddenly shouted. Just as he finished speaking, all the formations on the ground shattered. The iron pillars and chains flew out in all directions, killing countless people. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Ling Shiqi relied on the spirit steps to nimbly retreat, dodging one iron pillar and chain after another. During this process, he saw a huge palm break out of the ground. The 5 devil cultivators all retreated, no longer paying attention to Bo Yuanho's corpse, because at this time, the corpse's aura was abnormally low. The giant hand continued to stretch out, revealing a thick, pitch-black arm. When the arm came into contact with Boiwanhu's coffin, it suddenly moved and sent Boiwanhu's corpse and the coffin flying with a slap. At this time, some people also noticed that the coffin was empty. There was nothing inside. The gold and silver treasures, heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, and high-grade spiritual artifacts that they had imagined were all nowhere to be found. It turned out that this was an empty tomb. However, at this moment, no one was thinking about this. They were only thinking about how to survive. After the huge arm overturned the coffin, the ground began to crack, as if a huge monster was about to break out of the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, countless tiles on the ground exploded as if they were swept away by a hurricane. Then, a pillar of monstrous devil chi gushed out from the ground, and a huge body that was more than 20 feet tall was faintly discernible in the devil chi. The 5 devil cultivators all revealed crazed and fanatical expressions. Black Fiend Demon Corpse. The Black Fiend demonic corpse has finally appeared. Ah, it's ours. However, before they could finish speaking, the thing that they called the Black Fiend demon corpse directly slapped them. The demonic corpse's attack revealed a terrifying aura that far exceeded the spirit pulse realm. But strangely, the 5 devil cultivators did not reveal the slightest bit of panic. It was as if all of this was within their expectations. The devil chi around each of them flashed, and the 5 of them strangely dodged the Black Fiend demon corpse's attack. Moreover, they spread out in 5 directions to surround it. Then, each of them took out a small, light golden needle. With a flick of their fingers, the golden needle ignored the devil chi around the Black Fiend demon corpse and shot into its body. The needle was very small, not even as thick as the Black Fiend demon corpse's hair. But it was this small golden needle that caused the terrifying Black Fiend demon corpse to howl in pain. Then, with the golden needle as the center, countless golden runes quickly spread out. These runes covered more than half of its body like a seal. One of the devil cultivators shouted, "Even if it's your 1,000-year-old Black Fiend demon corpse, you still want to cause trouble in front of us. Obediently kneel down and accept your submission." This series of huge changes made everyone a little dumbfounded. Blood flowed from the corner of Lu Lucheng's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he muttered, "Golden thread fiend needle. How could they have such a treasure? Who are they?" One of the devil cultivators said, "You don't deserve to know our identity. You only need to know that you don't disturb us. Buiyuan Ho sacrificed a lot to suppress this Black Fiend demon corpse. Our goal this time is to subdue this demonic corpse and prevent it from causing trouble in the world. This can also be considered a good karma. I think Buiyuan Ho's spirit can rest in peace now. We can forget about the matter of you attacking us just now." Ling Shiqi could not help but frown. Only now did he finally understand that Buiyuan Ho sacrificed himself to suppress this 1,000-year-old Black Fiend demon corpse. And from the beginning to the end, there were no treasures in this tomb at all. The most precious thing was naturally the Black Fiend demon corpse. The 5 devil cultivators came for it, but to Ling Shiqi and the others, it was not a treasure, but a ghost that could take their lives. Ling Shiqi also felt a little sullen. In the end, it was like drawing water with a bamboo basket. He did not get anything and wasted so much time. The others were even more unwilling. It was these devil cultivators who played them like monkeys. Now, they did not get any benefits and had to watch helplessly as the devil cultivators sealed the demonic corpse. Did they treat them like air? However, at this time, the Black Fiend demon corpse suddenly changed. Under the suppression of the golden thread fiend needle, the Black Fiend demon corpse could not move. The 5 devil cultivators took out many miscellaneous things and arranged a formation, as if to subdue the demonic corpse. At this moment, a pure black chi suddenly gushed out from the top of the demonic corpse's head. The black chi transformed into the same appearance as the demonic corpse, but it was much smaller, only as tall as a child. After this black chi appeared, the 5 devil cultivators immediately showed a look of horror and shouted in unison, "Demonic spirit." This Black Fiend demon corpse actually gave birth to a demonic spirit. Ha ha ha. The demonic spirit laughed crazily, but its voice was abnormally sharp, piercing people's ears and causing incomparable pain. Ling Shiqi hurriedly circulated his spirit energy to resist and felt a little better. He did not know what a demonic spirit was, but he knew that things had changed again. Sure enough, after the demonic spirit finished laughing, it suddenly turned into a ghostly shadow and pounced into the crowd of city guards. Wherever it passed, everyone's eyes rolled back and they fell to the ground. When it flew over Zhonglin's head, it paused for a moment, then entered Zhonglin's body. Ah! Zhonglin let out a horrifying scream. His body began to twist strangely, his eyes turned pitch black, and his entire body was covered with dense demonic patterns. The aura on his body also rose wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it was comparable to the spiritual pulse realm. Zhonglin looked around and smiled evilly. He raised the large sword beside him and began to slaughter the city guards like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. This feeling is still more fascinating. Seeing this, the 5 devil cultivators could no longer remain calm. They were still maintaining the formation to subdue the demonic corpse, so they had no time to deal with the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit was slaughtering the city guards, but suddenly, with a poochie sound, his arm exploded by itself. A weak body, this is not bad. After Zhonglin said this, his body fell limply. The demonic spirit reappeared and charged directly at a person. That person was Ling Shiqi. Chapter 168. Ling Shiqi cursed his bad luck when he saw the demon spirit rushing toward him. He immediately gathered all his spiritual power and a faint black aura rose from his feet. He used the ethereal spirit steps and floated away. However, the demon spirit was even faster. Ling Shiqi had just dodged and was about to dodge a second time, but the demon spirit was already in front of him. He did not catch the demon spirit's shadow at all and was stopped by it. Then, the demon spirit entered Ling Shiqi's body just like before. Ling Shiqi only knew that his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Ling Shiqi laughed softly. Your physical body is not bad. Then, dense black demonic patterns appeared all over Ling Shiqi's body. Unlike before, the demonic patterns were still squirming slightly this time. His aura was even stronger and was comparable to the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm. Boom! Immediately, Ling Shiqi was wrapped in a dense demonic aura and crashed into the crowd of Luo Yu Manor disciples like a cannonball. Luo Xiuwen's expression changed greatly. Unfortunately, he cultivated very delicate spiritual techniques and was not good at such a fierce battle. He could only use all his strength to pull the 2 closest disciples away. However, the remaining disciples of the spiritual transformation realm could not stop Ling Shiqi. He spread his arms and the demonic aura around him formed sabers, halberds, spears, and other weapons and smashed them down. The disciples of Luo Yu Manor had never seen such a battle before and were already panicking. They could not withstand a single blow from Ling Shiqi. Blood gushed out from the crowd and limbs flew everywhere. Ling Shiqi wiped the blood stains on his hand and put it in his mouth. Delicious. It's your turn next. Ling Shiqi smiled coldly and locked his gaze on the 5 demonic cultivators who were still subduing the black fiend demon corpses. The 5 people's expressions immediately darkened. They were at the critical moment of sealing the demonic corpse, and if they were interrupted, it would mean that all their efforts would be for naught. Once their seal failed and the devil spirit returned to the black fiend demonic corpse, everyone in the tomb would die. Of course, that included them as well. Stop him! Stop him! One of the demonic cultivators shouted, but the others just dispersed and ignored him. In the beginning, it was these few people who were playing tricks. Otherwise, why would this black fiend demonic corpse be released? Now that there was a problem and they couldn't handle it, they thought of other people? Another devil cultivator frowned and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I am Su Lu. The array left behind by Marquis Buiyuan is already an arrow at the end of its flight after more than 300 years. Otherwise, how could the 5 of us release the black fiend devil corpse so easily? Even without us, the black fiend demonic corpses will break out of the formation in a few years. And the purpose of our trip this time is to completely seal the black fiend devil corpse, so as to prevent it from causing an irreversible disaster. Now, we only need you to delay this monster for a moment. Once we seal its body, it will be time to kill the devil spirit." After Su Lu finished speaking, he looked at Luo Xiuwen, Yujinyu, and Lu Leking. Now, only the three of them could stop Ling Shiqi. These three people were the upper echelons of the spirit cultivator sect. Naturally, they knew that if the lips were gone, the teeth would feel cold. Although they were very unhappy about being used by the devil cultivators, they did not want to die even more. At this time, the three of them finally stood up. Ling Shiqi tilted his head. With a shake of his shoulders, the billowing demonic aura behind him condensed into 4 giant pythons. His hands also formed swords and sabers, and he charged forward at a speed as fast as a phantom. His demon-like attack immediately scared the surrounding people away, but at this time, 3 people blocked in front of him. Yujinyu raised one of his palms high above his head, and white clouds began to gather on it. Then, the clouds formed the shape of a huge palm. He shouted, "Sky Cloud Palm." The cloud palm slammed down from mid-air. At the same time, Luo Xiuwen's face darkened as he held his brush and drew out streaks of sword aura. The sword aura formed the word, "kill." When he drew the last stroke, the sword aura of the word, "kill," shot out. Lu Leking was a little embarrassed. He was an array master and was not good at fighting head-on. At this time, he could only set up 2 defensive restrictions on the spot to stop Ling Shiqi. That's the ultimate skill of the Sky Cloud Pavilion, Sky Cloud Palm. It said that the owner of the Sky Cloud Pavilion once used this move to kill a level 4 demonic beast. There's also the kill sword technique of Luo Yu Manor. Anyone hit by it will definitely die. That Master Lu can set up restrictions out of thin air. Unbelievable. Is this the true strength of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert? I actually saw it with my own eyes. If I can get out of here alive today, this is enough for me to brag about for a year. When the others saw that the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm experts had taken out their trump cards, they started chatting and seemed to have forgotten that they were also in great danger. However, Ling Shiqi's eyes were full of disdain. Facing Yujinyu's Sky Cloud Palm, the 4 devil chi pythons behind him charged forward. Immediately, there was a loud bang in mid-air, and a black and white ball of light appeared. Huge waves of spirit chi spread wildly, and everyone could not help but take a few steps back. At this time, Luo Xiuwen's kill sword chi also arrived in front of Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi casually swung the saber and sword in his hand. He didn't use any powerful sword techniques, but just swung it down, and the kill word sword energy was instantly shattered. Ling Shiqi did not slow down and rushed to the restrictions set up by Lu Leking. However, Lu Leking himself had already run as far away as he could. He saw Ling Shiqi easily break Yujinyu and Luo Xiuwen's attacks and knew that these 2 restrictions could not stop him at all. Sure enough, the devil chi around Ling Shiqi surged. He directly ignored the 2 restrictions and rushed forward. The devil chi pythons behind him and the sword in his hands were all aimed at the 5 demon cultivators. Su Lu and the others were already a little regretful at this moment. They thought that this trip would be very smooth, but they did not expect this black fiend demon corpse to give birth to a demon spirit. Now that the demon spirit had found a suitable body and exploded with such terrifying combat power, even if the 5 of them worked together, they might not be a match for the demon spirit, not to mention that they now had to maintain the array that sealed the demon corpse. Just as they did not know what to do, Ling Shiqi suddenly stopped. The demonic patterns on his body were slowly fading, and the demonic aura around him was disappearing by more than half. The 4 giant pythons and the sword had also disappeared into nothingness. Moreover, his upper body began to twitch stiffly. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. The 5 demon cultivators' faces lit up. Although they did not know the reason, this did give them more time. They immediately put more effort into the seal. Then, half of Ling Shiqi's face faded. He said with half of his mouth strangely, "Scram. Out." Chapter 169. After being possessed by the demon spirit, Ling Shiqi's consciousness came to an extremely dark space, and he turned into a small ball of green light. He had been here before. This was his spiritual space. However, at this time, his spiritual space was shrouded in a layer of devil qi, which was constantly eroding his spiritual space. Ling Shiqi naturally could not sit still and wait for death. However, he was only a small ball of light now. What could he do? At this time, Ling Shiqi knew that he could not panic. He quickly calmed down and looked for a solution. Slowly, he remembered that when the demon spirit came out of the black fiend demonic corpse, it was also a ball of black light, but it later turned into a human form. Can I do this too? Ling Shiqi thought of this and tried it. Then, his green ball of light began to squirm irregularly and gradually stretched out. It seems to work. Gradually, Ling Shiqi seemed to have found the trick to controlling his body. Soon, it formed a green humanoid the size of a doll. However, this humanoid figure looked a little strange. Its four limbs were of different lengths, and the facial features on its face were blurry. Is this all I can do? Let's try it. Immediately, the green humanoid clenched its fists and slammed them into the layer of black demonic aura. Although the two fists were small, the force of the fists was extremely fierce. It was like a tiger pouncing on its prey and smashing into the demonic aura. The combined force of the fists directly blasted a big hole in the layer of demonic aura. Because of this, he once again felt his own body and gained some control over it. This was the scene that everyone saw outside. At this time, the right half of Ling Shiqi's face was still covered with demonic patterns. This half of his face showed a hint of surprise, then it became gloomy and said, and then, the demonic aura in Ling Shiqi's right eye soared. The demonic patterns on his body emerged again, and the demonic aura around him began to gather. At this time, Lu Leking saw this and immediately shouted, "They are fighting for control of the body. Quickly attack." Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen heard this and were about to attack. However, Ling Shiqi said again, "Ignorant. Come and kill him. After you kill him, I'll just change into another body." However, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen still rushed over. They were not stupid. Just now, when the demon spirit possessed Zhong Lin, his body exploded in an instant. Now, when it possessed Ling Shiqi, it could last for so long. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Ling Shiqi's body was extraordinary. Killing Ling Shiqi would greatly weaken Mo Ling's strength. As for Ling Shiqi's life and death, they didn't care at all. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen attacked from the left and right, one palm and one sword respectively. Ling Shiqi also felt an extreme sense of crisis. He immediately used the little bit of control he had over his body to activate the Beast Essence battle pattern on his back. Boom! Ling Shiqi's body suddenly swelled, bursting out of his robe, revealing his muscular upper body. At this moment, the picture of the spiritual ruined Beast King lit up on his back. There were even traces of golden light flowing within the picture. Once the Beast Essence battle pattern appeared, it immediately forced the demonic patterns on his back to retreat. Ling Shiqi gained more control over his body. Seeing that it was effective, he immediately activated another Beast Essence battle pattern in front of him. Layers of silver-white light lit up at his chest, and the light quickly covered his entire body. When the silver light dissipated, Ling Shiqi's body had an extra set of scales. Until now, only the right half of Ling Shiqi's face still had demonic patterns, which made him feel slightly more at ease. The other half of the face smiled strangely and said, "Interesting." Ling Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, the demonic patterns reappeared on his silver-white scales, but they were much sparser than before. At the same time, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen's attacks were about to reach him. "Brat, if you don't want to die, give me control." The demon spirit's voice suddenly appeared in Ling Shiqi's mind. Impossible. Humph, if you die, I'll just change my body. But you'll really die. At most, we'll split it in half. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't give you control. Other than me, no one here can withstand your spiritual body. Without the support of your body, you can't use your full strength. If this continues, you'll be killed by the 5 demonic cultivators sooner or later. Half it is. Ah! Ling Shiqi let out a cry that sounded like a human, a demon, and a beast. Demonic chi surged around him, and he was covered in a layer of thin silver armor. The thin silver armor was covered with strange demonic patterns. In addition, a demonic beast pattern lit up on his back. What was even stranger was that his face was clearly split into 2 halves. The right half of his face was gloomy and violent, and his eyes were filled with pure demonic chi. The left half of his face was calm and shrewd. Blue veins popped out at the corners of his eyes, but his pupils had turned greenish-white. He stood still, and his black hair was blown wildly by the invisible force. He was like a demon. In the face of Luo Xiuan and Yu Jinyu's attacks, he stood still. Then, he swung his right arm, and the demonic aura behind him condensed into several huge halberds. The halberds carried a ferocious demonic aura and destroyed Luo Xiuan's sword aura like a rubber ball. They tore through his protective spirit energy and sent him flying. Luo Xiuan spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in mid-air and fell heavily to the ground. He slid back a few feet before stopping. Luo Xiuan clutched his chest and said in shock, "He's actually much stronger than before." Almost at the same time, Ling Shiqi's left hand formed a palm and shot out 6 palm shadows. Every palm image was burning with raging devil flames, wave after wave of blazing fire spread out, causing the surrounding spirit cultivator to retreat. After the 6 palm shadows were shot out, they merged into a demonic palm that was 5 feet in size. The demonic palm clashed with Yu Jinyu's sky cloud palm. When the 2 palms collided, there was a boom. The 2 palms collided and exploded in midair. However, the sky cloud palm was completely suppressed by the demonic palm and shattered after 2 breaths. The demonic palm did not slow down and continued to rush towards Yu Jinyu with the demonic flames. Yu Jinyu was shocked. Just as the demonic palm was about to reach him, a light purple lightning net suddenly appeared in front of him. The demonic palm was stopped by the lightning net, and Yu Jinyu immediately reacted and dodged. The moment he dodged, the demonic palm also broke through the lightning net and hit the tomb wall behind him. It actually left a deep palm print on the wall. Wherever the demonic palm passed, whether it was the floor or the iron pillars and chains, they all melted. This palm was actually so powerful. Yu Jinyu's face had already turned pale. If this palm landed on him, he would definitely die. Thus, he also looked at Lu Liqing gratefully. If it were not for Lu Liqing's lightning net that bought him some time, he would have melted like those chains. The demon spirit borrowed his body. Similarly, Ling Shiqi could also borrow the demon spirit's demonic aura. Just now, he used the 6-yang poisonous fire palm and added a majestic demonic aura. At the same time, he used the Byakugan to see through the spiritual power distribution of the sky cloud palm and found the flaw in Yu Jinyu's palm. That was why he could easily defeat Yu Jinyu. "Kid, your palm is a bit tricky. Help me get back my physical body. I can accept you as my disciple and teach you the supreme demonic technique." Chapter 170. Inside the tomb, Ling Shiqi's demonic aura was monstrous. 2 spiritual pulse experts couldn't even take a single blow from him, which made the others feel despair. At this time, Ling Shiqi's demonic eye on the right stared fiercely at Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators, while his left eye glanced at the door of the tomb. "Boy, you have some skills." Let's join hands and kill those 5 people. Help me get my body back, and I'll teach you the supreme demonic technique. Mo Ling's voice appeared in Ling Shiqi's mind. No, I think it's best to leave now. Leave? How can I give up on my body that has been cultivating for thousands of years? You think I can't see that your body has been suppressed for hundreds of years and has long been ruined? Moreover, those 5 demonic cultivators are about to be sealed, it's too late. Ling Shiqi naturally saw the situation inside the Black Fiend demon's corpse through his white eye. The demonic corpse looked unparalleled on the surface, but the inside of its body had long deteriorated. Presumptuous. I'm only talking to you like this because I'm giving you face. Do you know who I am? Join hands with me to get my body back, or I'll immediately devour your soul. Is that so? But you have to know that only my current state can allow you to exert the greatest power of your spirit body. If I die, you won't be able to kill the demonic cultivators. By the time they subdue your main body, your death date will also be here. Moreover, will you let me go after I help you get your body back? Are you too naive, or am I too naive? You. Mo Ling found that Ling Shiqi was unexpectedly stubborn, but what he said was all true. Now, Mo Ling still had to rely on Ling Shiqi's double beast origin battle patterns to exert the greatest power of his body. Just as the two of them were arguing, a tall figure stood up. It was Bo Yuanho's corpse. At the beginning, Bo Yuanho's corpse was sealed by the 5 demonic cultivators. Later, the Black Fiend demon corpse broke out of the formation and directly sent it flying to a corner of the tomb. After that, everyone's attention was placed on the Black Fiend demon corpse, and actually forgot about it. At this time, the Fiend corpse stood up. His scarlet eyes stared at the Black Fiend demon corpse that was about to be sealed. Then, he waved the heavy sword in his hand and walked over with heavy steps. With every step he took, his speed increased by a bit. When everyone noticed him, he was already charging over like a fierce bull. When Su Lu saw this, he immediately panicked. They were only a hair away from completely sealing the Black Fiend demonic corpse. Who would have thought that another big problem would come at this time? That's impossible. Didn't the fiendish corpse turn into an ordinary corpse after its baleful aura was sucked dry? Just a little bit more, damn it. Who can stop him? However, at this time, Luo Xiuwen was injured, Yu Jinyu and Lu Leking had consumed a lot of their spiritual power, and the remaining pure spirit realm and spirit transformation realm cultivators could not help. The only one who could stop the corpses was the Ling Shiqi. Unfortunately, they were still struggling with their thoughts. At this moment, Mo Ling also saw the fiend corpse rushing over and knew what it wanted to do. He immediately pulled the right half of the Ling Shiqi and rushed forward. Mo Ling wanted to destroy the fiendish cultivator's seal and also stop the fiend corpse's attack. But this was too difficult. If he went to stop the fiend corpse, then his original body would be sealed. If he went to kill the fiendish cultivators, then his original body would have to face the attacks of Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. Mo Ling knew the situation of his original body best. If he allowed the fiend corpse to attack, he was afraid that he would really be killed. Kid, let's work together again. I'll kill the fiendish cultivators, you go stop Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. However, the Ling Shiqi's method was to do his best to stop Mo Ling. In the spiritual space, the Ling Shiqi was also constantly destroying the fiendish qi in order to gain more control of his body. In the outside world, he controlled the left half of his body to hold Mo Ling back. Bastard, you're courting death. Mo Ling suddenly appeared in the spiritual space. He waved his arms, and the fiendish qi behind him formed 9 giant pythons and rushed over. At the same time, in the outside world, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was getting faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it was not far from the fiend corpse. Then, he raised his heavy sword, which emitted waves of fiendish chi that made people shudder. The heavy sword fell with the force of 1,000 caddies, instantly destroying the fiendish cultivator's formation and sending them flying back while vomiting blood. In the next moment, the heavy sword slashed across the fiendish black corpse's neck, and its head fell to the ground. Not only that, but the black light on the heavy sword continued to absorb the fiendish black corpse's fiendish black corpse. In the blink of an eye, the fiendish black corpse collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into a large pile of minced meat. After doing all this, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse's tall body fell down with a loud bang, and the heavy sword fell beside him with a clang. Even if Bo Yuanho only had a trace of will left, he still wanted to kill the fiend corpse. At this moment, Su Lu and the other fiendish cultivators' eyes were so wide that they were about to pop out of their sockets. They had worked so hard and wasted so many treasures, but in the end, they had failed at the most critical moment. What made their efforts go to waste was not the fiend spirit, who was the greatest threat, but the fiend corpse of Bo Yuanho, who they had never taken seriously. They were full of anger, but now that Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was completely dead, they had nowhere to vent their endless anger. At the same time, in Ling Shiqi's spiritual space, the fiend spirit controlled the 9 ferocious pythons to rush toward Ling Shiqi's spiritual body. Ling Shiqi was startled by the fiend spirit might that soared to the sky. He hurriedly used Ghost Parade and Spirit Steps in an attempt to dodge. But the fiend spirit laughed wildly and said, "Still want to dodge? Die." However, just as the 8 pythons were about to completely devour Ling Shiqi's spiritual body, the demon spirit trembled all over. He couldn't even maintain his human form. The pythons condensed from demonic aura naturally dissipated into nothingness. Ling Shiqi's heart moved. He knew that the fiend spirit's main body had been killed. After all, the fiend spirit was only born from the fiend corpse's remnant will after many years of accumulation. He originally relied on the main body to exist, which was why he had to take back his physical body. Now that his main body was killed, his spiritual body was naturally seriously injured, and his strength sharply decreased. The reason why Ling Shiqi wanted to stop the fiend spirit was because of this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Shiqi hurriedly controlled his body to take out something that should not exist in this world from the system space. A small glass bottle. The glass bottle contained a light blue liquid. This was the prize that Ling Shiqi won from the 20 consecutive draws on Blood Mist Island, the spirit mixture. Ling Shiqi raised his head and drank it. Then, in the spiritual space, his spiritual body shone with a green light. Not only did it grow several times, but it also formed the same appearance as himself. Even a strand of hair was very fine. He clenched his hands and condensed 2 long swords, staring at the fiend spirit with killing intent. Chapter 171. In the spiritual space, Ling Shiqi slashed out 2 cyan blade auras that were like crescent moons. The blade auras flew out with boundless sharpness. The demon spirit's entire body was still trembling. It was unable to resist at all and allowed the 2 cyan blade auras to slash its body. The 2 cyan blade auras instantly cut the demon spirit into 3 pieces. The demon spirit's body became even smaller and could no longer maintain its human form. All that was left was its head. In the outside world, the demonic patterns on Ling Shiqi's body were fading. At the same time, his aura suddenly dropped. It dropped again and again until it was equivalent to the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. This huge change in aura immediately attracted the attention of the spirit pulse realm cultivators, especially the 5 demonic cultivators. Su Lu's face was ferocious as he shouted, "The demon corpse has been slashed and the demon spirit has also been heavily injured. Kill this person and hook out the demon spirit. I will torture it day and night so that it will never be reincarnated." Voila! The 5 demonic cultivators took out a strange weapon at the same time. The weapon seemed to connect the two curved blades together. Then, a faint black demonic aura emitted from the weapon. The five of them charged towards Ling Shiqi with killing intent in their eyes. At this time, Ling Shiqi had regained control of most of his body. Seeing 5 Spirit Pulse Realm experts surround him, he was shocked. A part of his mind sank into the spiritual space and said, "Demon spirit, do you want to live? If you have something to say, say it." At this moment, the demon's soul spoke, but its voice was obviously weak. "Lend me all your strength and charge out. You just injured this sovereign and you want this sovereign to help you." Wishful thinking. The demon spirit roared. "But if I die, you will definitely fall into their hands. Didn't you hear them just now? They want to lock you up and torture you so that you will never be reincarnated. Helping me escape is also helping yourself. After we get out, we will settle our grudges with our own abilities. It's better than dying in the hands of others." "Okay." Mo Ling hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. Then, he completely gave up control of Ling Shiqi's body. Not only did Ling Shiqi regain control of his body, but he also felt a huge amount of devil chi surging out of his body. However, at this moment, the 5 fiendish cultivators had already arrived. Ling Shiqi tapped his feet lightly, and 2 streams of black mist rose up to his thighs, increasing his speed by 80%. Then, he used floating spirit steps and dodged the attacks of the 2 like a ghost. Ling Shiqi's footsteps paused as he threw out a punch and a palm respectively. That punch was followed by the sound of a tiger's roar. Immediately after, a shadow of a ferocious tiger leaped out and crashed into a devil cultivator, sending him flying. Furthermore, when that person wasn't paying attention, a powerful hidden energy surged into his body, causing him to spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. The other palm was the 6-yang poisonous fire palm. The devil cultivator had seen the power of this palm and did not dare to fight it head-on. Instead, he chose to retreat. Ling Shiqi dodged the attacks of the 2 and forced the other 2 to retreat, but there was still one devil cultivator who had not made a move yet. That was Su Lu. He had been watching Ling Shiqi's movements, looking for a flaw. At this moment, Su Lu's strange weapon burst out with an astonishing cold light and slashed horizontally. Ling Shiqi had thrown out a punch and a palm in succession. At this time, he was in a short period of weakness. This time, he could not avoid it. With a thought, a layer of pure devil chi was attached to his body. It was also at this moment that Su Lu's weapon arrived. With a buzzing sound, the weapon hit the devil chi and caused it to tremble. In less than a blink of an eye, it was broken. The weapon continued forward and cut a deep wound on Ling Shiqi's silver scale armor. With a strong force, Ling Shiqi could not help but fly backward and crash into the crowd of Heavenly Cloud Tower. The people of Heavenly Cloud Tower immediately scattered, while Eugenu's eyes flashed with killing intent. Just now, he had been defeated by Mo Ling. Although he was not injured, he had lost face. Now that Mo Ling's strength had been greatly reduced, he might as well hit him when he was down. After Ling Shiqi fell to the ground, he stood up directly regardless of his injuries. His eyes paused on someone in Heavenly Cloud Tower for a moment, and then he flashed out. Just as Eugeniu was about to make a move, a disciple next to him whispered, "Elder Yu, we have been fooled by the 5 devil cultivators for a long time. Why don't we let them and Mo Ling kill each other now? No matter who wins, the winner will definitely be seriously injured. At that time, we will come out to eliminate the devil cultivators. The name of Heavenly Cloud Tower will definitely spread throughout Donglin County." The person who spoke was Yoshia, who had been controlled by Ling Shiqi. Hearing Yoshia's words, Eugeniu nodded secretly and said, "It's a very good idea. You are very smart. I don't deserve it." Eugeniu stopped making a move and prepared to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Seeing this, Ling Shiqi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Dealing with the 5 devil cultivators was already his limit. If Eugeniu joined in, he was afraid that he would die here. Su Lu and others continued to attack. Eugeniu retreated far away with the people of Heavenly Cloud Tower. Ling Shiqi turned into a phantom and rushed out. On the ground where he had just fallen, there was a small inconspicuous pill. Yoshia's eyes were filled with eagerness when he saw the pill. That was the last antidote of the ant-devouring poison pill. The battle between Ling Shiqi and the 5 devil cultivators was still going on. Although it was called a battle, it was more like Ling Shiqi had been dodging. If he couldn't dodge, he would fight head-on. It didn't take long for his body to be covered with wounds. In the process, many people were killed by mistake. What everyone didn't notice was that Ling Shiqi's position was slowly approaching the door. However, he didn't deliberately get close. Instead, he circled around every time he got closer. He was afraid that others would find out his intention. At this time, Ling Shiqi visually estimated the distance to the door and said secretly, "It's about time." Facing the 5 demonic cultivators, a spiritual sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Soon after, a graceful and agile feeling surged from his body. His figure flickered, and in an instant, more than 20 phantoms appeared. Many phantoms stabbed out with their swords in different postures, and each sword was accompanied by an amazing sword chi. In an instant, the sword chi overflowed, and the sword chi was everywhere. The faces of the 5 devil cultivators changed slightly. They couldn't tell if these phantoms were real or fake, so they could only defend. However, one of the phantoms didn't attack them. Instead, it turned around and rushed to the door. Su Lu was the first to notice Ling Shiqi's intention. He immediately used his devil chi to force back the phantoms around him, and with a wave of his weapon, he shattered several sword chi and chased after him. Ling Shiqi took out 3 flying daggers from his sleeves. The 3 flying daggers were stained with pure demonic aura and shot out in a triangular formation. After the flying daggers were shot out, the daggers absorbed the demonic aura on them and even absorbed the surrounding light. The entire surrounding area seemed to have become dimmer. This was a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light throwing knives. Su Lu's figure suddenly stopped. The strange weapon in his hand spun, and with 3 clangs, the 3 throwing knives were knocked to the ground. However, Su Lu was also knocked back. His feet slid on the ground, leaving 2 deep grooves. After Ling Shiqi shot out the throwing knives, he took out his 3-part spear. His aura was unparalleled. He drew a huge black cross of light and brazenly blasted it at the door. Chapter 172. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the tomb. Under Ling Shiqi's formation-breaking cross spear, half of the tomb's door had collapsed. Ling Shiqi went out without hesitation. Su Lu and the other 4 demonic cultivators roared and immediately chased after him. However, just as they approached the door, a huge wave of ink-colored cold air rushed in from outside. Before the cold air touched them, Su Lu felt a bone-piercing cold, as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cellar. Su Lu immediately shouted, "Retreat!" The other 4 people retreated one after another, barely avoiding the cold air that surged towards them. However, the cold air condensed and froze the collapsed part of the door. Seeing this, Su Lu's face was even darker than his clothes. He knew that even if they broke the ice wall, they would not be able to catch up with the demon spirit. Their trip this time could be said to be fruitless, and they even lost a bunch of treasures. It could be said that they went for wool and came home shorn. One of the demonic cultivators asked, "Senior brother, what should we do?" Su Lu's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He said in a low voice, "Without the Black Fiend demon corpse, our whereabouts cannot be exposed." The other four understood Su Lu's meaning and then turned to look at the remaining people coldly. Luo Xiuwen was the closest to them, and he immediately sensed the killing intent from the 5 demonic cultivators. His heart skipped a beat. Now that he was seriously injured and lost more than half of his disciples, he was no match for the 5 demonic cultivators at the spiritual pulse realm. Lu Luqing was alone and an array master, so he was not good at fighting head-on. The city guards were attacked by the demon spirit from the beginning and suffered heavy casualties. Go Huarong was still alive, but it was difficult for him to protect himself with his few spirit transformation realm cultivators and a group of pure spirit realm cultivators. As for the remaining rogue cultivators, they were like a plate of loose sand, almost as if they did not exist. The only ones who still maintained the strongest combat power were the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Therefore, Su Lu and the other 4 regarded them as the first targets to kill. On the other hand, Ling Shiqi's frozen door had helped the demonic cultivators to temporarily trap everyone here. Yu Jinyu shouted with a pale face, "What do you want to do?" "We are from Heavenly Cloud Tower." Su Lu didn't say a word as he approached with the odd-shaped blade in his hand. Apparently, he didn't take the Heavenly Cloud Tower seriously. Yu Jinyu shouted to everyone, "Everyone, they actually want to silence us. Even though they are all in the Spirit Pulse realm, there are only 5 of them. If we join forces, we might still stand a chance." Luo Xiuwen and Lu Leqing also stood up and expressed their attitude. When the other sects saw the 3 Spirit Pulse realm cultivators standing at the front, they naturally gathered around as well. The demonic cultivators only had 2 more Spirit Pulse realm cultivators. Just as Yu Jinyu had said, they had a chance of winning. However, the nameless demonic cultivator laughed sinisterly. Then, a head, a pair of arms, a pair of legs, a skeleton, and a heart appeared in each of their hands. Demonic chi rose from the bodies of the demonic cultivators. After a dozen breaths of time, the scattered limbs actually connected together in the demonic chi, finally forming a demonic corpse. And that demonic corpse's aura was stronger than any of them. Su Lu laughed and said, "Demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts, enjoy your meal." The demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts was their trump card, but it took time to summon the demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts. Previously, Ling Shiqi was too fast for them to assemble. Now, it was time for them to slaughter. The 5 of them licked the corners of their mouths. On the other side, after Ling Shiqi escaped from the tomb, he quickly passed through the mechanism corridor. However, when he was about to reach the entrance of the mausoleum, he directly jumped up and disappeared into the mountain wall above. Then, he went all the way up to the top of the mountain. Then, Ling Shiqi suddenly stopped and his mind sank into the spiritual space. In his spiritual space, Mo Ling became even more dispirited. Ling Shiqi transformed into a long green blade and walked closer. Mo Ling said weakly, "What, now that you've escaped, you want to burn the bridge after crossing it?" Ling Shiqi's spiritual body began to slowly shrink at this time. He knew that the effect of the spiritual medicine was about to end, so he had to end the battle quickly. However, Mo Ling suddenly laughed sinisterly, "Aunt, do you really think I'm easy to bully? Look around you." Ling Shiqi turned his head when he heard this. It turned out that a circle of various strange beasts formed by demonic patterns had appeared around him. The patterns were lifelike and looked like they would turn real at any time to tear him apart. Previously, in the outside world, Ling Shiqi's thoughts were all on dealing with the 5 demonic cultivators and thinking of a way to escape. He actually allowed Mo Ling to set up such a trap. The demon spirit's remaining head grinned and said, "Ha ha ha, a little ant dares to threaten this lord again and again. Now, as long as you take the initiative to offer your body, this lord can let you die a little faster, and you can even have a chance to reincarnate." Ling Shiqi looked around carefully at the strange beasts and then looked at Mo Ling. He felt that something was not right. Then, his spiritual body closed and opened his eyes, and his eyes turned white. His spiritual body also activated Byakugan. Under the characteristics of Byakugan, Ling Shichi instantly saw through Mo Ling's trick and immediately sneered in his heart, so he was deliberately mystifying. This is just a smokescreen. That's right, if Mo Ling still has this kind of power, why did he have to join forces with me to escape? He could just kill the demonic cultivators directly. Mo Ling was still laughing wildly. However, Ling Shichi still held the dual blades and walked forward slowly. Mo Ling's heart skipped a beat when he saw this, but he still looked like he had victory in his hands and a majestic demonic aura rose behind him. It was amazing. Brat, surrender before I go back on my words. Unfortunately, Ling Shichi was unmoved and continued to walk forward. At this moment, he had already walked in front of a strange beast. He gently waved his blade and cut the strange beast in half. Mo Ling didn't expect Ling Shichi to see through his trick. He stared at Ling Shichi's Byakugan for a moment. You actually have such a strange eye technique. Ling Shichi still ignored him. He raised his dual blades and the blades began to shine again. Mo Ling suddenly said quickly, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. We can still continue to work together. Don't you want to have the power to fight against 5 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators with your Spirit Transformation Realm cultivation? As long as you let me stay in your spiritual space, I can lend you my power at any time." Mo Ling's address for himself had changed from I to I. Ling Shichi didn't answer him, and the blade shined even brighter. Mo Ling quickly continued, "Also, I have countless high-level cultivation methods, spiritual techniques, and extremely rare secret techniques. As long as you don't kill me, I can give them all to you. In addition, I left behind several treasures when I was alive, and the resources inside will all belong to you. With these, you will be able to break through to the Spirit Pulse realm soon. In the future, you might even be able to transcend the 4 realms of heaven and become a powerful cultivator." Hearing this, Ling Shichi finally restrained some of the blade shines, but he didn't put down the blades. He said, "Words are no guarantee." Mo Ling saw Ling Shichi say this and knew that he had taken the bait. He immediately spat out a cloud of demonic aura, and the demonic aura outlined 3 paragraphs of text in front of him. They were the 9 Nether Demonic Pattern Diagram, Demonic Weapon Mystic Technique, and Earth Fiend Demonic Shadow Claw. Chapter 173. The demonic energy condensed into 3 paragraphs of text, and Mo Ling's voice came, "This 9 Nether Mageweth diagram is a supreme cultivation technique that even I am cultivating. Its grade is beyond your imagination. However, your realm is too low, so I can only give you the first 3 levels. The Demonic Armament Secret Manual is a high-level spiritual technique. Once you master it, you can condense a demonic armament and wipe out an army. I can only teach you the first move, but I can teach you the complete Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw. This is a level 4 spiritual technique." Ling Shichi secretly read these 3 paragraphs of text, and a system prompt appeared in front of his eyes, indicating that Mo Ling did not tamper with the techniques. However, Ling Shichi had also roughly guessed Mo Ling's thoughts. The reason he only wrote a part of the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram and the Demonic Weapons Mystic Classic was to use them as bait to keep Ling Shichi in suspense. Sure enough, Mo Ling continued, "However, these techniques are too advanced. Although your aptitude is not bad, it is not that easy to get started. I can also guide you in your cultivation." However, Ling Shichi did not speak. He seemed to be thinking, and Mo Ling was also watching his reaction closely. In fact, Ling Shichi's real consciousness had already gone to the gray space to cultivate these 3 techniques. It was just that the time required to cultivate a spiritual skill of this level was much longer than that of level 2 or level 3 spiritual skills. After a short while, Ling Shiqi's spiritual body came back to his senses and raised his head slightly. Mo Ling said in a confident tone, "Kid, have you thought it through? Follow me, and I guarantee you will." However, before Mo Ling could finish his sentence, he was greeted by two cyan moon blades. "Bastard!" The demonic spirit was furious. He opened his mouth to a terrifying extent. Billowing demonic chi spewed out from his mouth, condensing into different weapons to meet the saber light. The two collided fiercely, causing the spiritual space to tremble slightly. Even though Mo Ling's strength was less than 10%, the effect of Ling Shiqi's spiritual medicine was almost over, so this confrontation was actually evenly matched. However, Mo Ling's aura had clearly weakened again. Ling Shiqi did not dare to give it any chance to breathe. He turned his saber into a sword, and with a movement of his body, 12 cyan phantoms appeared. The devil spirit was both angry and frightened. Its little remaining devil chi rapidly condensed, forming its body and limbs. In addition to its original head, it formed the appearance of a black fiend devil corpse. Unfortunately, it was only the size of a baby. Ling Shiqi's 12 swords arrived. Mo Ling roared, and demonic patterns appeared on the demon corpse's body and connected to each other to form a set of black heavy armor. The 12 swords flashed quickly, causing the devil chi on Mo Ling's body to dissipate. Unfortunately, this was the spiritual space, and no one had a physical body. So, whether it was the pulse-unblocking sword chi or the frost sword chi, they did not have any physical effect. This move, Dazzling Flower, did not directly defeat Mo Ling. However, Ling Shiqi's attack did not stop at all. He withdrew his sword and condensed it into a spear. His eyes showed the courage of a warrior on the battlefield, and the tip of his spear pierced over with a cyan cross. The formation-breaking cross spear finally completely broke through the demonic pattern heavy armor on Mo Ling's body, and the tip of the spear pierced into Mo Ling's head. Mo Ling suddenly let out a few shrill screams. At this moment, his whole body was collapsing, and even the shape of his head could not be maintained. All that was left was a black ball of light. Ling Shiqi's spiritual body was almost unable to maintain its human form due to excessive consumption. Ling Shiqi raised his right fist, and at the last moment he could still maintain his human form. He blasted out a tiger wave stepping fist. As the heavy fist approached, Mo Ling no longer had any other means. He shouted sharply, "Madman, you are a madman. You don't want the supreme technique and endless resources. You are simply stupid to the extreme." At the last moment, he was still hoping that Ling Shiqi would stop. Unfortunately, the fist finally fell, and Mo Ling was directly blown away by this fist. At this moment, Ling Shiqi's spiritual body had turned back into a ball of light, and his aura was weak. Then he returned his consciousness to his body and immediately removed the two Beast Yuan battle patterns. Immediately, Ling Shiqi's body suddenly burst open with bloody wounds one after another. Blood flowed out from his limbs and bones, and all the meridians in his body were aching faintly. This time, he had never activated the Beast Yuan battle patterns for so long. Now the burden on his body was too great, and he even felt like he was about to collapse. Ling Shiqi endured the pain and swallowed a few elixirs to nourish his qi and blood. He shook his head with a bitter smile. He chose to get involved in the matter of Boiwanhu's tomb in order to seek opportunities to make a breakthrough quickly. Who knew that not only was there a huge secret hidden in the tomb, but there was also nothing at all. In the end, he was covered in injuries. However, Ling Shiqi was not without gains. It could be said that he gained a lot, and that was the technique and spiritual technique given by Mo Ling. Although the 9 nether magic pattern was only incomplete, it was enough to compare to a rank 4 technique. This technique was the main technique of the Black Fiend demonic corpse. The core of this technique was the magic pattern. This magic pattern could be said to have endless magical uses, but Ling Shiqi was only at the beginner level and had not had time to study the use of the magic pattern in detail. What was even more precious was that this cultivation method was a combination of spirit cultivation and body refinement. Ling Shiqi was very satisfied with this. The reason he could survive today's battle was largely because his physical strength was not weak. Otherwise, after being possessed by Mo Ling, it would not take long for him to explode and die like Zhonglin. There would not be any follow-up. Before this, Ling Shiqi had already cultivated the 8 stones horizontal training technique to the extreme. He did not have any other body refining techniques, so his physical strength had not improved for a long time. Now, the 9 nether magic pattern could be regarded as making up for this. The demonic weapon secret technique was also a very high-level spiritual technique. Ling Shiqi did not know how high it was. He only knew that the first move of this spiritual technique was comparable to a rank 4 spiritual technique. Ling Shiqi did not dare to imagine how high the overall grade of this spiritual technique was. Although he also coveted the follow-up techniques and spiritual techniques, he knew that Mo Ling was too terrifying. He did not dare to keep it in his spiritual space. Others carried a kind old grandpa with them, but he had to carry 1,000-year-old demonic corpses Mo Ling. Who knew if he would be killed by Mo Ling one day? As for the Earth Fiend demonic shadow claw, it was also a genuine rank 4 spiritual technique. It could be said that it had greatly increased his strength. Overall, he had gained quite a lot from this trip. However, what made Ling Shiqi even more surprised was that he inadvertently discovered that his cultivation had unknowingly reached the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. Chapter 174. Ling Shiqi suddenly realized that his cultivation had inexplicably increased to the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. However, he was very clear that he had just broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm 2 days ago. Furthermore, the 6th level to the 7th level was a huge bottleneck. He had originally prepared for a long period of cultivation, but now he had broken through just like that. After a moment of joy, Ling Shiqi revealed a hint of suspicion. He hurriedly looked inside his Qi Si and discovered that the originally pure white spirit energy in his Qi Si was actually mixed with a small portion of black spirit energy. Is that the demonic spirit energy produced by cultivating the 9 nether demonic pattern? But even if I cultivate an additional rank 4 cultivation technique, it shouldn't be enough to reach the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm all of a sudden, right? Could it be that I accidentally absorbed a portion of the demon spirit's power? Ling Shiqi thought to himself, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He had once borrowed the power of the demon spirit, and then suddenly killed it. Perhaps there was still a bit of its power left in his body. To the demon spirit, it was just a little bit of power, but it was enough to allow Ling Shiqi to cross a small realm and ignore a bottleneck, directly breaking through. Ling Shiqi muttered, blood, these injuries are really worth it. At this moment, Ling Shiqi suddenly felt a slight fluctuation of spirit energy from below. He was surprised and immediately opened his supercilious eyes to look down. Now that all the formations in the mausoleum had been destroyed, his supercilious eyes could penetrate through without any obstruction, so he saw that there was a fierce battle going on in the mausoleum. He also saw a huge amount of spirit energy with an unknown aura. It was Su Lu and the other 5 demonic cultivators who were slaughtering the remaining spirit cultivators. Ling Shiqi thought to himself, are they killing people to silence them? That's good, so that my information won't be leaked out. However, when he saw one of the familiar spirit energies dissipate, his heart moved. Then, he adjusted his body for a while to recover some strength before breaking out of the ground and walking towards Shangyang City. The owner of the spirit energy that disappeared just now was Go Huarong. Now that Go Hwarung was dead and the elites of the Chinko Hall were almost all dead, the only ones left were the low-level spirit cultivators of the spirit assembly realm guarding the entrance of the mausoleum. In other words, Chinko Hall only existed in name. Since that was the case, the resources that Chinko Hall had accumulated over the years naturally could not be given to others. Before the news spread, Ling Shiqi dragged his injured body and stole a horse to rush to Shangyang City. While Ling Shiqi was hurrying on his way, 5 demonic cultivators stood in the middle of a blood-soaked azure field. At this moment, only the 5 of them were left alive in the tomb. Regardless of whether it was Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luoyu Manor, or other spirit cultivator sects, or people from the imperial court like the city guards, or rogue cultivators, all of them had perished here. However, the 5 demonic cultivators were not in good condition either. Each of them was heavily injured. Su Lu covered a bloody hole in his right chest and said hatefully, "I didn't expect that old man Lu Luqing to have so many trump cards. If it weren't for the 5 ghost demon corpses, we might have really lost our lives. This time, we really suffered a big loss. Although the Black Fiend demon corpses are useless, they still have some use. It can be considered as making up for a small loss. Senior brother, are we going to go out directly? I remember that there are still many people outside." Su Lu thought for a moment and said, "That's right. Although the cultivation of those people outside is low, we are all injured. It's impossible to kill them all. If we go out rashly, we will definitely leak our information. We might as well hide here and use a secret technique to conceal ourselves. Then, we will find an opportunity to go out. After we go out, we will go find the devil spirit. I will definitely make him unable to reincarnate forever." After that, the 5 of them walked to a dark corner of the mausoleum and sat down cross-legged. One of them released a faint demonic chi from his hands to cover them up, perfectly blending into the darkness. Outside Wei Yuanho's mausoleum, there were indeed many people gathered here. Some of them were from the Chinko Hall and the city guard, while most of them were rogue cultivators. Almost all of these people were only in the spirit assembly realm. They knew that their cultivation was too low. They might not be able to find any treasures after going in, and would most likely lose their lives. Therefore, they were purely here to watch the show. They wanted to see who would be the final winner. Which faction obtained what, how many people they lost, and so on. These would all become the hot topic of discussion in the future. However, they waited from late in the morning until the clear moon hung high in the sky. Still, they did not see anyone come out. Many people were anxious, especially the people from the Chinko Hall and the city guard. They were afraid that something unexpected had happened. Many people were also discussing spiritedly. What's going on? It's just a mausoleum. Why haven't they come out after so long? There must be a lot of danger inside. It's not like you didn't feel the huge earthquake during the day. But it's already night time. Whether they are dead or alive, there should be a sound. Why don't we go in and take a look? If you want to go, then go. We don't know if so many experts are dead or alive. You're courting death. Some of them were worried, some were afraid, but most of them were curious. They were curious about what had happened inside. However, no one dared to go in and find out. The night passed just like that. However, no one came out. At this time, the people from the Chinko Hall and the city guard could not sit still. They discussed for a while and decided to join forces to go in and take a look. With someone taking the lead, the rogue cultivators who wanted to watch the show followed in one by one. They walked through the mechanism passageway and the corpse puppet mausoleum, buzzing all the way. However, when they approached the main mausoleum, they smelled the strong smell of blood from afar. The expressions of the people from the Chinko Hall and the city guard changed. They quickened their steps and walked into the main mausoleum. Then, everyone who entered the main mausoleum was stunned like a statue. The people at the back were still pushing and shoving with some dissatisfaction. The moment they squeezed into the main mausoleum, what they saw was a horrifying scene of blood flowing like a river and broken limbs everywhere. Blurg, some people could not stand it and vomited on the spot. However, while these people were in a daze, no one noticed that 5 figures had quietly mixed into the crowd and left the main mausoleum. Those 5 people were naturally Su Lu and the other 4 devil cultivators. However, what everyone did not know was that in a mountain valley 10 miles away, 9 spirit cultivators in white robes were setting up an array and anxiously waiting for something. These people did not look very old, but they were all at the spirit transformation realm. They were the 9 elite disciples of the Hao Yi sect other than Lu Luqing. At that time, before Lu Luqing entered the mausoleum alone, he told them to hide here and set up a sound transmission array to wait for him to send news at any time. However, they waited for a long time and did not hear any news from Lu Luqing. Their hearts were beating fast, afraid that something had happened to Lu Luqing. At this moment, the array in front of them suddenly lit up. Then, Lu Luqing's voice came from inside. He told them everything that had happened in the main mausoleum, including the matter of Bo Yuan Ho, the 5 devil cultivators, the black fiend demon corpse, the demon spirit, and the matter of them being silenced by the devil cultivators. At this moment, the 9 people knew of the great changes that had happened in the mausoleum. They were all dumbfounded, but Lu Luqing's death made them feel even more grief and indignation. Quickly return to the sect. This matter can only be decided by the sect master himself. Chapter 175. By the time everyone discovered the tomb, Ling Shiqi had already arrived at Shangyang City. Because of his injuries, he didn't dare to move too fast even when riding a horse. Arriving at Shangyang City again, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh. In the past half a month, he had come here 3 times. The first time was to assassinate Bao Pingyi, and the second time was for the tomb of Bu Yuan Ho. The third time was for the resources of Qingkou Hall. Because the people of Qingkou Hall could come back at any time, Ling Shiqi couldn't delay. After entering the city, he passed through a few alleys and familiarly arrived at the main hall of Qingkou Hall. In fact, he had already discovered Go Huarong's private storehouse, but there were many people guarding it in the past, including many spirit cultivators of the spirit transformation realm. Moreover, there were many mechanisms inside. Even if he could use his supercilious eyes to detect them, destroying the mechanisms would inevitably cause noise and attract attention. So Ling Shiqi didn't make a move before. Currently, 70 to 80% of the spirit cultivators in the Qingkou Hall had been brought to the flat roof, and the remaining spirit cultivators were scattered to the various streets. Currently, there were only a pitiful dozen spirit cultivators in the main hall. Ling Shiqi quietly sneaked into the secret room, and wantonly destroyed the mechanisms inside, and began to plunder Go Huarong's many years of collection. However, what made Ling Shiqi's face gloomy was that most of the resources in the secret room had disappeared, leaving only a few ordinary resources. There were only 400 spirit stones, which was simply impossible for a gang that had been rooted in Shangyang City for nearly 20 years. There were quite a few level 1 and level 2 spirit tools, but Ling Shiqi sold them all to the system. There were also some pills for the pure spirit realm and the spirit transformation realm. Ling Shiqi kept some of the better quality pills for himself and sold the rest. The rest were some heavenly treasures and the like. Ling Shiqi never kept these things, but he did find something very useful here. Blood Yang Crystal. This was a level 3 treasure that contained a large amount of blood qi and had a wide range of uses. It could be used to refine one's body and prevent one's qi and blood from deteriorating. Of course, it could also be used to replenish one's qi and blood. Ling Shiqi had been using 2 Beast Origin battle tattoos for a long time and had suffered a severe loss of vitality. This blood sun crystal could be said to be a timely rain. After tidying everything up, Ling Shiqi also discovered that the most precious resources, the cultivation methods and spiritual techniques that he wanted the most, were all gone. These resources were most likely hidden in Go Huarong's mind, but unfortunately, they no longer existed. Before he left, Ling Shiqi suddenly remembered that not long ago, when he plundered Bao Pingyi's private vault, he also lost more than half of the resources. It could be said that it was exactly the same as this place. There was some doubt in his eyes, but then he remembered that Bao Pingyi had once climbed up to the Heavenly Cloud Tower, and that the Chinko Hall had joined forces with the Luoyu Manor. They were a dignified third-rate spirit cultivator sect. Why would they be related to a gang in the marketplace? I'm afraid that Bao Pingyi and Go Huarong had to hand over more than half of their precious resources to climb up to the spirit cultivator sect. Unfortunately, the Three Blades gang had already been destroyed, the Chinko Hall only existed in name, and the city guards were also less than a tenth of them. I'm afraid that Shangyang City will be in chaos for a while. However, none of this had anything to do with him. After he packed everything up, he silently left with the Blood Sun crystal and more than 600 system coins. After that, Ling Shiqi spent a day refining the Blood Sun crystal, absorbing the qi and blood energy within it. The injuries on his body had also recovered by 70 to 80%, and he only needed to rest for a few more days. Counting the time, it's been more than 20 days since I accepted the mission to assassinate Bao Pingyi. There are only a few days left until the mission deadline. I really didn't expect that this trip would be so difficult. Ling Shiqi softly muttered to himself, then returned to the Shadow Wind Ridge branch. Along the way, he would occasionally use supercilious eyes to investigate the surroundings, afraid that he would accidentally encounter the 5 demonic cultivators. However, it was obvious that he was overthinking. He arrived at the Shadow Wind Ridge very smoothly. However, when he approached the entrance of the branch, he subconsciously stopped and looked at the huge scorched pit beside him. This was the place where he was beaten half to death by Tang Haoqing from the Tang family 10 days ago. He would always remember that punch. Then, he walked into the branch that he had not seen for a long time. Looking at the crowded square, he secretly sighed in relief. He had been wandering around for nearly a month, and he was finally back. At this time, a black-clothed assassin brushed past Ling Shiqi. After that person walked past him, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and exclaimed, "Ling Shiqi." Ha! Ling Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look at that person, but he found that he did not seem to know him at all. In fact, that person did not know Ling Shiqi. The cause of all this was when Tang Haoqing came to cause trouble 10 days ago. Tang Haoqing's punch killed Fan Jingchu on the spot, but Ling Shiqi went missing. The Grand Pavilion leader Ghost Ju was so angry that he severely injured Tang Haoqing and killed 2 Tang family disciples. Since then, he had asked everyone to look for Ling Shiqi, so people here were very clear about his body shape and appearance. But after searching for more than 10 days, there was no news, so everyone assumed that he was dead. But now, Ling Shiqi came back by himself. As soon as that person's voice fell, the noisy square suddenly quieted down, and everyone's eyes gathered on Ling Shiqi. Feeling the eyes of the crowd, Ling Shiqi was a little surprised. The black-clothed assassin stared at him and said, "Ling Shiqi, you're not dead." At this time, other people also rushed over and said one after another, "This kid is really tough. This boy is so tough that he can survive the attack of a gang spirit realm master." The Grand Pavilion leader said that he might not die, but I didn't believe it. The Grand Pavilion leader is really the Grand Pavilion leader. The Grand Pavilion leader fought for him and seriously injured Tang Haoqing. It's really satisfying. But recently, we've been asking around for news about him, but we got nothing. Where is he hiding? These assassins rarely got together to chat like this, because there was really nothing worth gathering together. They usually repeated the boring life of cultivation and tasks, so it was rare for them to chat like this, so more and more people gathered here. Ling Shiqi looked like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, he had put on a mask, so no one could see it. At this time, the savior came. A red-clothed assassin embroidered with golden patterns came over. Everyone stood up straight and said in unison, "Lord Gu Yan." Gu Yan's voice was very deep. He said, "Let's go." The others immediately scattered. Gu Yan said to Ling Shiqi, "The Grand Pavilion leader is looking for you. Come with me." Chapter 176. After a month, Ling Shiqi saw Ghost Ju, the Grand Pavilion Master of the Donglin County branch. He found that Ghost Ju had a lot more white hair in his bun. Furthermore, Ling Shiqi could even sense a trace of lethargy from his body. He immediately remembered that someone had mentioned that the Grand Pavilion Master had seriously injured Tang Haoqing. He thought to himself, it said that the Grand Pavilion Master is very old, and his qi and blood have begun to decline. He can't fight at will. Could it be that his qi and blood have deteriorated because he forced himself to fight? Ghost Ju was relieved when he saw Ling Shiqi walk in unscathed. He said slowly, "You're really troublesome. When Tang Haoqing attacked, I sensed an aura escape. After that, all the disciples in the branch tried to find out about you, but there was no news, so they all thought you were dead. However, I know you're not simple, so I reported to the Pavilion Master that you were missing." Ling Shiqi could not help but feel a little embarrassed when he heard this. After he recovered from his injuries, he had disguised himself and entered Xiangyang City. He had only come into contact with Mao Kai, and then he had been hiding under the Qingkou Hole. It would be strange if those people could find him. Mao Kai had broken the rules of the Blood Rogue Pavilion to give him the information, so Mao Kai definitely did not dare to say that he had seen Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi immediately said, "Although I escaped, I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. I found a hidden place to heal and did not dare to show up. I've troubled the Grand Pavilion Master. It's good that you're back. I see that your cultivation has improved a lot." "It's a blessing in disguise," Ghost Ju said meaningfully. Ling Shiqi knew that he could not hide his cultivation from the Grand Pavilion Master, so he had already prepared an excuse. Just as he was about to explain, Ghost Ju waved his hand indifferently. "Everyone has their own opportunities. Since you're back, you should rest for a few days. Wait for the new Grand Pavilion Master to take over before you accept any missions." The new Grand Pavilion Master. Ling Shiqi could not help but be stunned. Ghost Ju said, "I've already sent the news of your return to the Pavilion Master. Although you're not dead, you had an accident in my hands. I still have to bear the responsibility. I'm sure I won't be able to sit in the position of Pavilion Leader anymore." The Pavilion Branch Great Pavilion Leader was a position of great power in the Blood Rogue Pavilion. Although Ghost Ju was no longer one of the 9 Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins, the Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins were all concentrated in the General Pavilion. There were 3 of the strongest people above them, so they didn't have much power and benefits to share. On the contrary, although the resources of the branch pavilion were not as good as the main pavilion, the Grand Pavilion Leader had the highest authority here. He was equivalent to a local tyrant. Some were even more well off than the Netherworld Blood-Clothed Assassins. However, because of Ling Shiqi, Gue Ju wanted to step down from his post. This made Ling Shiqi feel a bit guilty. Great Pavilion Leader, this disciple, there's no need to say any more. Gue Ju interrupted Ling Shiqi and said, "I don't care about the fight for power. I'll return to the main pavilion and become an outer sect elder. You, on the other hand, should be more careful in the future." "Me?" Ling Shiqi was a little confused. "Yes, in fact, even if you didn't have an accident this time, the General Pavilion would transfer me back sooner or later. Then they would definitely send that person to succeed the position of pavilion leader. The more Lang Shiqi listened, the more confused he became. However, he was also keenly aware that all these changes seemed to be related to him. So he asked, "Who will it be?" "Feng Shamo." Gue Ju's tone became a little dignified. Ling Shiqi was very strange to hear this name. He didn't know who it was at all. Gue Ju explained, "This person is the chief protodisciple of the pavilion leader. His cultivation has just entered the gang's spirit realm. He deserves to be the leader of his generation of disciples." The chief protodisciple of the pavilion leader. Ling Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. At this time, he thought of another person, Yushu. Yushu was also the disciple of the pavilion leader. That was to say, the trusted pavilion leader of Donglin County was very likely to be Yushu's senior fellow apprentice. Gue Ju continued, "Feng Shamo is arrogant and unruly. He thinks highly of himself and acts decisively and ruthlessly. Although his cultivation has just entered the gang's spirit realm, his combat capability is comparable to the middle stage of the gang's spirit realm. In fact, such a person is not suitable to be the pavilion leader of the branch, but the pavilion leader will definitely send him here. Ling Shiqi, you have to remember that you can't be too close to Feng Shamo or too distant from him. You have to control the degree." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi knew that Gue Ju's words were more profound. He vaguely felt that he seemed to be inexplicably in an undercurrent. He nodded and said, "Thank you for your advice, pavilion leader. Well, that's all I have to say. You can leave now." Ling Shiqi immediately bowed and left. After coming out of the pavilion leader, he was full of worries. He thought that he could avoid the internal disputes of the sect by coming to the branch in Donglin County, but he didn't expect that an invisible storm had already formed around him. But he couldn't do anything, which made him very uncomfortable. Phew. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh and spit out all the depression in his heart. He quickly adjusted his mentality and walked to the square. When he came to the branch for the first time, he didn't pay much attention to it. At this time, he looked carefully and found that there were hundreds of black-clothed killers in the square, all of whom were spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm. In addition, there were more than 20 blood-clothed killers, all of whom were masters in the 4 realms of celestial being. The weakest one was in the spiritual pulse realm. And most of the killers were performing tasks outside. Eugenia was a deacon elder in the Heavenly Cloud Tower, but she was only a blood-clothed killer in the blood-clothed pavilion. At this moment, Ling Shiqi finally realized the power and horror of the blood-clothed pavilion. Just this branch alone was comparable to a second-rate force. Ling Shiqi then walked to a desk, took out Bao Pingyi's head, and handed it to a gray-clothed disciple opposite him. He said, 2-star mission, assassinate the leader of the Shangyang City's 3 Swords Gang, Bao Pingyi. He was here to hand in the mission, which had been delayed for nearly a month. It was finally time to hand in the mission. Fortunately, Bao Pingyi's head had been stored in the system space and showed no signs of decay. Otherwise, even if it was stored in the mustard seed bag, there would be some changes after so long. The gray-clothed disciple took the head and took out a thick book to flip through. After a short while, he took out a red brush and sketched on it, saying, "May I borrow your identity token, sir?" Ling Shiqi took out his identity token and placed it on the desk. The gray-clothed disciple inserted it into a blood-red groove, then took out something similar to a card and swiped it on it. Then, the number 50 appeared on Ling Shiqi's identity token, and finally disappeared into the token. The gray-clothed disciple returned the token with both hands and took out a small package containing spirit transformation pills and spirit stones. He said, "Sir, all your rewards are here." Ling Shiqi nodded and took the package and the token. Then, he returned to his stone room and prepared to study the 9 nether magic pattern. Chapter 177. Ling Shiqi returned to the stone room and began to carefully study the 9 nether mageweth diagram. Using the system's infinite skill points, he was now at the entry level. However, infinite skill points could only allow him to reach the entry level of the technique. He could only rely on himself to comprehend the rest. Currently, Ling Shiqi already possessed 2 high-grade cultivation methods. The other was naturally the 7 Fiend Blood Kill art. Unfortunately, these 2 cultivation methods only had the first 3 levels. However, in this way, there was a comparison between the 2 techniques. After studying for a while, Ling Shiqi found that the 9 nether mageweth diagram seemed to be more applicable than the 7 evil blood technique. He had the first 3 levels of both techniques, but he could now condense the mageweth by practicing the 9 nether mageweth diagram. However, he could not use the characteristics of the 7 evil blood technique. Then, Ling Shiqi began to condense the mageweth according to the technique. He closed his eyes and a faint layer of demonic aura emerged around his body. The demonic aura was still floating. Under the control of Ling Shiqi, the demonic aura gradually gathered and formed a tadpole-like mageweth. The first mageweth was successfully condensed. Ling Shiqi's mind moved and the mageweth continued to wander around his body. He could clearly feel that wherever the mageweth stopped, his strength would be increased. The effect of the increase was not very obvious. It was only about 5%. At this time, Ling Shiqi thought of the countless mageweths that appeared on his body after being possessed by the demon spirit. How many mageweths had he condensed? Therefore, he still had great expectations for the 9 nether mageweth diagram. He immediately began to condense the second mageweth. According to the technique, the spirit transformation realm was the lowest standard to practice this technique. Every time he advanced to a higher level, he could condense 1 more mageweth. In other words, he could condense up to 7 mageweths now. Not long after, Ling Shiqi had successfully condensed the second mageweth. He attached both mageweths to his fist and immediately felt the strength of his fist increase by about 10%. After about 4 hours, Ling Shiqi finally condensed 7 demonic patterns. With all 7 demonic patterns on his fist, his strength had actually increased to 60%. It was already quite extraordinary. Unfortunately, the Ling Shiqi consumed a lot of spiritual energy to maintain 7 mageweths at the same time, so it could only be used at critical moments. Even so, he was already very satisfied. He murmured, "If I were to use the beast origin battle pattern and the demonic pattern at the same time, how much stronger would I be?" At this moment, he also remembered that when he was possessed by the demon spirit, he had also done the same thing. He remembered that at that time, he had easily defeated the spirit pulse stage Yujinyu. He even fought 1 against 5 spirit vein stage demonic cultivators. Ling Shiqi longed for that kind of power, but he knew that power could not be obtained overnight, and he could not go astray just to obtain power in a short period of time. Therefore, after condensing the demonic patterns, Ling Shiqi continued to cultivate and recuperate. On the 3rd day, his injuries were more or less healed, but there was quite a commotion outside the stone room. Ling Shiqi walked out of the stone room with a hint of doubt. When he walked to the square, he saw 2 people talking in the center of the square, while the others were standing far away. One of them was the pavilion's Grand Pavilion leader, Guiju. The other person was wearing a blood-red robe with golden patterns, and there were 3 patterns on his mask that looked like wind and blade marks. Even though no one could see his face, they could feel the obvious arrogance coming from him. Then, this person's identity was obvious. Ling Shiqi thought to himself, "Is he Feng Shamo?" He came so quickly. He still remembered that when he and Fan Jingchu came here from the General Pavilion, it took them 7 or 8 days even if they traveled day and night. But this Feng Shamo had arrived in just 3 days. Guiju said with a mocking tone, "Martial nephew Feng came really quickly." Feng Shamo's voice sounded a little low, and he replied, I just happened to be nearby. And he spoke to Guiju without the slightest respect for his martial uncle, which made the others a little dissatisfied. Guiju had been the Grand Pavilion leader of the Donglin County branch for many years, and most of the assassins here were promoted by him. They were all in awe of Guiju. Guiju said casually, since Marshal Nephew Feng is here, then the Donglin County branch will be handed over to you from now on. This is the Grand Pavilion leader's seal. After he finished speaking, a small dark gray box suddenly appeared in his palm. Feng Shamo took the small box without hesitation, weighed it in his hand, and put it away in his mustard seed bag. He said, Marshal Uncle Guiju, do you have anything else to say? Hearing this, even Lang Shichi couldn't help but frown. Feng Shamo, you've lost everyone's trust. Guiju was his martial uncle, and he had been in charge of the Donglin County branch for many years. Now that he had been ordered to leave after handing over the Grand Pavilion leader's seal, it left an impression in the hearts of others that he was arrogant and unreasonable. This wasn't good for him to smoothly take over the Donglin County branch. However, he didn't think Feng Shamo was wrong. Perhaps Feng Shamo just came to the branch to pave the way for his future. He didn't really want to manage the branch. Guiju didn't care too much about Feng Shamo's words. Instead, he said earnestly, you can find Guyan and Taiying for important matters in the branch. They can be your right-hand men. Got it, Feng Shamo said impatiently. Then, Guiju looked around and glanced at everyone. He paused on Lang Shichi for a moment before he turned and left. Immediately, many people wanted to see him off, but Guiju said, go do your own things. Everyone had to stop, but their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. At this moment Feng Shamo said loudly, I, Feng Shamo, will be the Grand Pavilion leader of the Donglin County branch from now on. The rules of the branch will remain the same. What you do now or in the future, I won't care. There's only one rule, I only want obedient people. A silver-striped blood-clothed assassin came up and said, Grand Pavilion leader, there's something I can't. However, before he could finish his sentence, Feng Shamo drew a long and narrow spirit saber out of nowhere and slashed at him. That sword slashed out a light green sword aura that was dozens of feet long. There were also countless wind blades on the blade aura. No one expected Feng Shamo to attack, and they all quickly retreated in shock. The silver-striped blood-clothed assassin was even more flustered. In a hurry, his body lit up with dozens of star-like light spots. However, before the light spots could bloom, he was completely swallowed by the green sword aura. Feng Shamo, the new pavilion leader, had actually killed a Spirit Aperture Realm silver-striped blood-clothed assassin in one strike. The reason was because he said one more thing. Chapter 178. In the pavilion square, everyone stared blankly at the silver-striped blood-clothed assassin lying on the ground. That was a master of the Spirit Aperture Realm. He was a master of the Supreme Power Realm who could open a sect. But he was killed by his own man. You just need to listen to what I say. Also, I don't want to say the same thing twice. Gather here at noon tomorrow. After saying this coldly, Feng Shamo walked straight into the room that only the head of the pavilion could stay in. But before he left, he glanced at Lang Shichi faintly. After Feng Shamo left, the square was still deathly silent. At this moment, although everyone was dumbfounded, they all had different thoughts. Some people were afraid of Feng Shamo's cruelty. As the head of the pavilion branch, he killed his fellow disciple. This was a big taboo in the sect. But they all knew that Feng Shamo was the direct disciple of the head of the pavilion, and one of the candidates for the position of the head of the pavilion in the future. Who could control him? Some people were shocked by Feng Shamo's strength. The man who was killed was a master of the Spirit Aperture Realm, and Feng Xiaomo had just entered the gang's spirit realm. Logically speaking, it was acceptable for him to be killed after a fierce fight. However, that person was killed in a single strike. This caused everyone to be horrified. Some people were amazed by Feng Xiaomo's means. For example, Ling Shiqi. He had this thought at the moment. Since Feng Xiaomo entered the pavilion branch, he had always given people a feeling of superiority. Even Ghost Ju, who used to be one of the 9 Netherworld blood-clothed assassins, who had been in charge of the Donglin County branch for more than 10 years, and whose seniority was frighteningly high, was nothing in his eyes. But then, he suddenly attacked and killed a master of the Spirit Aperture realm with lightning speed, which directly shocked everyone. He was using this method to tell everyone that strength was the most important thing. His way of doing might be unreasonable and incomprehensible in some people's eyes, but in Ling Shiqi's eyes, his means were very brilliant. Not to mention other things, from now on, no one in the pavilion branch would dare to disobey his orders. That was enough for him. Then, Ling Shiqi didn't care about what the others thought. He went back to his stone room and practiced even harder. Feng Xiaomo's appearance made Ling Shiqi feel an indescribable pressure. He had to raise his strength at all times. At noon the next day, except for those who were still out on missions, all the disciples gathered in the square. Ling Shiqi blended into the crowd of assassins and looked around. At this moment, there were more than 300 true disciples here. About 70% of them were black-clothed assassins, and there were dozens of blood-clothed assassins. Most of them were black-striped blood-clothed assassins at the Spirit Pulse stage. Not long after, Feng Xiaomo walked over, accompanied by 2 golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins, Gaian and Taiying. Today, I will only say one thing. The branch has already accepted a 7-star mission. Feng Xiaomo said straightforwardly. A 7-star mission. When everyone heard this, huge waves rose in their hearts, but no one dared to say a single word. This Feng Xiaomo was currently in the middle of a new official's life, and they didn't want to be unlucky and lose their lives. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but be moved. He was clear about the missions in the blood-clothed pavilion. As a black-clothed assassin, he could only accept 1-star and 2-star missions. The black-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept 3-star and 4-star missions, and so on. In other words, only golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept a 7-star mission. However, this type of mission had always been rare. For example, the 2 golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins, Gaian and Taiying, hadn't accepted a mission in a long time. Thus, they had been helping the pavilion leader manage the affairs of the branch. This Feng Xiaomo just came yesterday, and he already has a 7-star mission today. How can it be so coincidental? Besides, what does a 7-star mission have to do with us? Ling Shiqi was very confused. Not only him, but almost everyone had the same doubts. Feng Xiaomo continued, this mission is very unusual. Even a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin can hardly complete it alone, so it will be a group mission. Ling Shiqi finally understood why Feng Xiaomo called everyone together, but he was more confused about what kind of mission could not be completed by a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin in Gang's spirit realm alone. How could they get involved in such a mission? Feng Xiaomo didn't keep them guessing and said directly, this mission is to destroy the third-rate force in Donglin County, Golden Wing Academy. Hiss. Even though everyone was restraining themselves from speaking, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they heard this. This was the first time they had heard of a mission to destroy a sect. Then, who could have such financial resources to invite the blood-clothed pavilion to destroy a third-rate sect? At this time, Ling Shiqi finally knew Feng Xiaomo's intention. Although Golden Wing Academy was only a third-rate sect, it must have many disciples. Not to mention a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin, even a ghostly blood-red clothed assassin might not be able to complete this mission. After all, there were so many people in a force. They were not fools who would stand there and let you kill them. As long as they fled in all directions, even a great master in oneness of heaven and man realm could not kill them all. So this time, a large number of assassins had to work together to complete the mission. Gu Yan, you tell me the list of those who will participate in this mission. Feng Shamo said to Gu Yan next to him. Gu Yan nodded and took 2 steps forward with a booklet. Everyone else stared at the booklet eagerly, hoping that their names would be on it. As a third-rate sect, Golden Wing Academy was not weak, but the strength of the branch in Donglin County was stronger. Moreover, these assassins were best at killing skills. Their combat effectiveness was superior among the spirit cultivators of the same level. It was not a big problem for them to destroy Golden Wing Academy. Therefore, as long as they could participate, they would be people who had completed a 7-star mission. It could be said that they were plated with a layer of real gold. Gu Yan called out one name after another, and everyone who was called out stood in front. When he called out the 2 words, "Icy Death," Ling Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look. Icy Death's figure looked very thin, and on the mask was a scene of an ice prison. This Bing Shang's reputation was quite high in the branch pavilion. His most shocking achievement was that he had assassinated the Tang clan's genius, Tang Hiyu. Because of this, he had attracted Tang Haoqing, causing Ling Shiqi to be seriously injured. However, Ling Shiqi did not have any complaints. He just looked at them with pure interest. As the names were called out one by one, hundreds of people had gathered in front of the square. Gu Yan also called out the last name, Ling Shiqi. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.